Chapter 738. If Taishu Temple also participated in the Battle of Yinghai this time, Yan Mingyue's stance was still uncertain. However, if Taishu Temple did not get involved, Yan Mingyue would undoubtedly help the Great Zhou dynasty. The relationship between the Great Zhou dynasty and the Celestial Sect of Wonders could not be said to be harmonious. Although Yan Mingyue herself had a rather friendly relationship with the Celestial Sect of Xianmen, and had attended the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Assembly with Lin Daohan previously, in the eyes of outsiders, this outstanding direct descendant of the Taishu Temple had high hopes for the Celestial Sect of Xianmen. But no matter if it's Lin Feng or Yan Mingyue herself, they both know that Yan Mingyue, as well as the people supporting her behind her, want to attempt to walk a third path between the current conservative and radical factions of the Void Temple. The bearer of this third path is the Great Zhou dynasty, and Yan Mingyue will not change her position, abandoning the Great Zhou dynasty to take the Heavenly Sect of Wonders. More than 3 years ago, after the Battle of West Hill City, Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue once teased each other about swapping ships, but in reality both of them knew in their hearts that teasing was just teasing, it would not become reality. It was not about how much resources Yan Mingyue had poured into the Great Zhou dynasty. If she felt that the Great Zhou dynasty was no longer suitable for her, she would be decisive enough to give up all her efforts and start anew. However, even if she started anew, Yan Mingyue would not choose Xianmen Tianzong because it did not match with her path. It was not because Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong were too weak. On the contrary, Yan Mingyue saw terrifying potential in Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong. However, it was also because of this that they could not really cooperate. Of course, this did not affect Yan Mingyue's impression of Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong. Even if they met in the end, they could get along happily and cooperate with each other to a certain extent. At the same time, they could also build a personal friendship. Public was public, private was private. Whether it was Lin Feng, Yan Mingyue, Lin Daohan, or even Liang Pan and Stonefeather, they were all very clear about this. Speaking of which, many people in the know did not know whether to laugh or cry. Great Zhou and Great Qin were at loggerheads, but the Great Zhou Emperor Liang Pan and the Qin Emperor Stonefeather actually admired each other in private, and they even frequently communicated with each other. Of course, it was impossible for them to discuss matters of state, and it was just a simple conversation or some superficial exchanges on the Dao. Looking at Xiao Yan and the others, Yan Mingyue gently tucked her hair behind her ear and smiled faintly. Apart from the 3 immortal mountains, there are also endless treasures in the Yingxi. Since Mingyue has come to the Yingxi, I definitely can't avoid the customs. I will strive not to return empty-handed. Next, we will naturally have to continue venturing deeper into the Ying Ocean. If everyone is willing to travel with us, Bright Moon welcomes all of you. If not, then let's part ways here. May we meet again in the future. This time, the 3 mountains of the Ying Ocean have appeared, so there will definitely be a chance for us to meet again. However, when the time comes, I'm afraid the protagonists will be your master, Sect Master Lin, and the others. Bright Moon and everyone just have to wait and see. Xiao Yan looked up to the sky and laughed. Fairy Yan, you're too polite. In that case, let's meet again in the future. The meaning of Yan Mingyue's words was already clear. She had only come for the young monk and not for Xiao Yan and the others. Given the current situation, she did not want to deceive them. Therefore, Xiao Yan immediately cupped his fists and helped Yang Qing collect the Xiaoyang water vein. After that, he swept everyone up with his dermic powers and disappeared into the vast clouds above the Ying Ocean. Yan Mingyue looked at the departing Xiao Yan and shook her head slightly with a smile. Not only is Sect Master Lin's cultivation level unfathomable, but even his disciples' growth has begun to exceed expectations. Since Xiao Yan is like this, I'm afraid the others can't continue to use the original expectations to look at them. The beautiful woman in green placed her hands behind her back and looked at the misty Ying Ocean. She sighed softly and said, Xianmen Tianzong is really a sect that surprises everyone from top to bottom. I wonder where Sect Master Lin is now. He's still the biggest variable in the appearance of the 3 mountains. She was determined and would not waver in the slightest when she decided on her own path. However, this did not stop her from looking at the end of the path. She vaguely felt that it would be fine if her path could be successful. If it did not work, the biggest obstacle might not come from within her own sect or other forces. It was very likely that the sudden appearance of Xianmen Tianzong would cause her to reach the end of her path. As she sighed softly, Yan Mingyue's figure also hid in the void and disappeared. Also in the Ying Ocean, in a place extremely far away from the battlefield, a handsome young monk who looked to be in his teens was wearing a somewhat tattered gray monk robe. He stepped on the waves of the sea with his bare feet. He walked forward step by step as if he was walking on flat ground. It was as if he was not stepping on surging seawater, but firm and rough ground. Walking on seawater was not considered a skill, but in the Ying Ocean, which was filled with strange clouds and layers of illusions, it was like he was walking on ordinary ground. He ignored all sorts of terrifying illusions of various sizes and directly passed through them without being affected at all. This made him seem extremely terrifying. There were a few powerful illusions in the Ying Ocean that stole the fortune of the world. Even third-layer Essence Soul Realm Dao integration experts had to deal with them carefully if they encountered them. This was to prevent them from getting trapped in there and being unable to escape. However, this young monk in gray seemed to be taking a stroll in the courtyard of his temple. He ignored the various dangers in the Ying Ocean. As he walked, the young monk suddenly stopped and turned his head slightly. Buddhist light flickered in the void, and the young monk who had manifested the Rulai dermic body walked out with a chuckle. He pressed his palms together and bowed to the young monk. The young monk in gray also bowed and asked with a smile, "Bao Sheng, did something happen to the person you supported?" Monk Bao Sheng said with a chuckle, "Life is empty, and so is death. The cycle of life and death reveals the nature of emptiness. Although it's a little early to make up for this last stage, it's not necessarily a bad thing. You can arrange it as you see fit." The young monk in gray smiled. "But don't come back with a tail between your legs." Before he finished his sentence, the white clouds in the distant horizon started to disperse to both sides, and there was a faint thick radiance flickering. Monk Bao Xing said with a smile, "I can't help it. I only have the cultivation of the Golden Body Realm level 2, so I can't shake them off. It's already a blessing from Buddha to be able to retreat in time before they surround me." The young monk in gray smiled. "Then why aren't you leaving?" Monk Bao Xing laughed as his entire body turned into a light shadow and merged into the body of the young monk in gray. Then, the young monk in gray continued to walk forward unhurriedly. However, after taking this step, he immediately disappeared without a trace. "Master Jin Chan, why are you in such a hurry to leave after meeting an old friend?" A powerful voice echoed in the sky above the sea. Only the laughter of the young monk in gray was left in the void, but he disappeared without a trace. "We'll meet again if we're fated. Why are you so stubborn? Since the 3 mountains of Yingxi have appeared, everyone should focus on this fairy mountain." The powerful voice continued to speak calmly. "Since Master is also here for the 3 mountains, I believe the day we meet again is not far away." There was no strong intention to fight in his words. If Jin Chan did not leave, they would have to wrestle with him. However, if Jin Chan was determined to escape, the person would not chase after him. The 3 mountains of Yingxi had already appeared, and all the forces were searching for it. If the 2 of them were to fight now, it would only benefit the others. Master Jin Chan disappeared, and the thick radiance in the sky gradually dissipated. "I wonder what the Xianmen sect master is doing now. Let's not talk about the deity's future, but why is his clone still on the East Sea and not entering Yingxi?" Lin Feng, who was worried about by a group of people, was still on the East Sea in the Divine Land. Silently, he followed behind Luo Yao, Mu Yu, and the others, watching them return to Luofu Immortal Island. As the local tyrant of the East Sea, Luo Yao and the others might not understand, but Mu Yu knew that the violent tsunami that originated from the entrance of Yingxi was due to the 3 mountains of Yingxi appearing again. This time, the 3 mountains appeared earlier than expected. In addition, the demon race had chased them all the way to seek revenge. Although he had already refined the 9 transformations golden elixir, he still did not have time to send it to his master, Huang Ming. This made Mu Yu feel uneasy. Of course, he didn't know that his junior brother, Yuan Xiu, was in a worse situation. Xiao Yan and the others had taken away the Sea Spirit Cult King, and the three mountains had appeared earlier, making it too late for him to find another Sea Spirit Cult. At this moment, there wasn't even a shadow of the Sea of Clouds Mist Spirit Pill. Although Mu Yu's heart was in turmoil, he still felt very gratified when he looked at Luo Yao. Lin Feng had helped to extract the medicinal power of the 9 transformations golden elixir that had mistakenly entered Luo Yao's body. This way, he wouldn't be in a dilemma. He had practically watched Luo Yao grow up. Although his aptitude was only above average, Mu Yu admired his willpower very much and had already decided to make him his personal disciple. Chao Zhendong, Yun Jinxi, and the others had more or less relied on some connections to become disciples, but Luo Yao had been personally chosen by Mu Yu. All these years, Mu Yu had left Luo Yao outside to further hone him. In Luo Yao's previous cultivation, Mu Yu had actually paid close attention to every step he took and secretly guided him. Although Luo Yao lacked resources during his cultivation, causing his cultivation speed to be slower than Chao Zhendong, Yun Jinxi, and the others, every step he took was steady, laying a solid foundation. Mu Yu already had a complete plan in mind. He wanted to nurture Luo Yao to have a good foundation. In his opinion, Luo Yao would definitely have more stamina than Chao Zhendong and the others. However, there were 2 things that slightly worried Mu Yu. Firstly, the number of demons on the East Sea had decreased sharply. Most of them had gone to the Ying Sea together, but there were still many demons remaining on the East Sea. A considerable portion of them were from the dragon race, and these dragons were here to seek revenge against Mu Yu and the others. Although Lin Feng had chased away 2 Demon King Realm dragons, the other dragons were still chasing after them. Secondly, it was Lu Ning who was traveling with them. Mu Yu looked at the stern-looking female cultivator. She was the liaison envoy sent by Jing Huan Marquis. When the Ying Sea had suddenly become restless, she had taken a 9 revolutions virtual golden elixir from Mu Yu. She seemed to have the intention to part ways with Mu Yu and the others and rush to the entrance of the Ying Sea to meet up with Jing Huan Marquis. However, in the end, Lu Ning stayed and did not leave. Instead, she continued to travel with Mu Yu and the others. Mu Yu guessed that she was under Jing Huan Marquis' orders, but he could not guess the specific reason. Lu Ning stayed behind so that their strength would not be greatly reduced, and they would be much safer when facing the demon's pursuit. However, this made Mu Yu a little uncertain. However, he could not say much and could only hurry on with their journey, thinking of returning to the Luofu Immortal Island first. Lin Feng stood in the void and looked at them silently. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Is my guess correct? Chapter 739. Compared to Mu Yu, the group of young people was much more relaxed. Chao Zhendong and Yun Jinxi were even chatting and laughing. Luo Yao was very calm. The medicinal efficacy of the 9 transformations golden elixir had been extracted, so his life was no longer in danger. All he had to do now was to follow the group. If they really encountered danger, Mu Yu and Lu Ning would not be able to do anything, let alone him. However, compared to the past, Luo Yao was a little dazed. He had a feeling that he was different from before, but he could not put his finger on it. Luo Yao shook his head and smiled self-mockingly. The thrilling things he had experienced these few days had surpassed the sum of his past 10 years of life. After calming himself down, Luo Yao lifted his head and noticed a pair of eyes looking at him. It was Lu Ning. Lu Ning did not hide her gaze at all. She glanced at Luo Yao again before looking away. Luo Yao was a little uneasy. Lu Ning was a Yuanying cultivator, and his ability was above Mu Yu's. He was just a Qi refinement cultivator, and facing Lu Ning was like an ant facing an elephant. He could not refuse whatever Lu Ning wanted to do. It was like that previously. Mu Yu had refined 2 9 transformations golden elixir. Due to the invasion of the demon clan, his cauldron exploded when the pills were refined, and one of the pills accidentally fused into Luo Yao's body. Mu Yu refined the pills under the order of his master, Huang Ming. Huang Ming and Marquis Jing Huan worked together, so naturally, one of the pills was refined for each of them. Lu Ning had wanted to refine Luo Yao's blood and extract the medicinal efficacy, but Mu Yu had stopped her. He had used the other 9 transformations golden elixir as collateral, stating that the ready-made pill belonged to Marquis Jing Huan. Only then did Lu Ning not make a move. Now that the 2 pills were back in perfect condition, logically speaking, a dignified nascent soul cultivator like Lu Ning would not even bother with a qi refinement stage itinerant cultivator. However, Luo Yao kept feeling a slight chill on his back. Luo Yao thought to himself, but he did not know that Lu Ning was secretly puzzled as well. She had previously contacted Marquis Jinghuan and reported everything that had happened, especially the matter of Lin Feng's appearance. She had reported everything, no matter how big or small. She had thought that her mission was to immediately deliver the 9 transformations void golden elixir to Marquis Jinhuan, but after a moment of thought, Marquis Jinhuan ordered her to continue traveling with Mu Yu and the others. To be precise, he was traveling with Luo Yao. You can tell that person has the aura of the Iron Tree avatar. Then this Yuanying stage cultivator. It is very likely that he is the avatar of the Celestial Sect of Wonders' sect master. Lin Feng's Metal Tree avatar had seen very few people, so the itinerant cultivators of the East Sea naturally didn't recognize it. However, Marquis Jinghuan had heard of it and immediately had an idea. The master of the Mystic Gate's true body has come to the East Sea. Only this avatar has come, but he didn't travel with his disciple. He must be planning and investigating some matters. That kid called Luo Yao came into contact with him alone before, and he helped him extract the medicinal power from his body. You might come into contact with him in the future. Observe him patiently for a while, Marquis Jinhuan ordered. If there's no movement for a long time, we might as well capture him and search his soul to see if there's anything special. Lu Ning could not help but feel doubtful when she recalled Marquis Jinhuan's orders. She glanced at Luo Yao again. She had already secretly used her divine sense to roughly probe Luo Yao's body, but she did not find anything. Never mind, I'll wait for a while. If there's still nothing strange, I'll just search his soul. The group of people had their own thoughts as they advanced toward the Luofu Immortal Island. Mu Yu and Lu Ning were both injured, and the Yuanying stage cultivator was weak. They could not break through the void and escape, so they could only helplessly bring Luo Yao and the others and fly in the sky. They encountered many demons along the way. Fortunately, there were no Demon King level powerhouses, so they had a rather daunting journey without any mishaps. The closer they got to the Luofu Immortal Island, the fewer demons there were. Chao Zhendong, Yun Jinxi, and the others became more relaxed. However, whether it was Lu Ning or Mu Yu, they did not have any intention of letting their guard down. Instead, they became more and more vigilant. Luo Yao's heartstrings were also stretched taut. His expression was calm but solemn. Seeing him like this, Yun Jinxi could not help but smile. Zenith Luo, what's wrong? Luo Yao glanced at Mu Yu and Lu Ning, then he lowered his voice and said, I'm afraid there'll be great danger next. Yun Jinxi was slightly stunned. Chao Zhendong, who was beside her, also turned to look at him. Luo Yao deliberated for a while before he said, we'll be completely safe once we return to the Luofu Immortal Island. The demons won't dare to invade there. Since that's the case, they'll try to intercept us one last time at a place that's still some distance away from the Luofu Immortal Island. The level of danger this time will definitely surpass all previous ones. After all, that's their last chance. Yun Jinxi asked, then why don't they gather their forces in advance to intercept us? It's still very dangerous for them to stay near the Luofu Immortal Island. Putting aside Dao Venerable Luo Fu, even if the other cultivators on the island discover us, they'll quickly come to our aid. Luo Yao explained, if we're too far away from the island, it's very likely that they won't be able to intercept us. After all, the area is too large, and we can return from all directions. In this case, if they want to intercept us, the other party's line of defense will be very wide. In this way, their strength will inevitably be diluted. Just like those stragglers we encountered on the way just now, we'll be able to break through in one go. Luo Yao was a little worried. We'll have to return to the Luofu Immortal Island after all. This destination is certain. If they set up a siege near the Immortal Island, it's very likely that they'll be able to intercept us. At the same time, the closer we get to the Immortal Island, the lower our vigilance will be, and it'll be easier for us to relax. Luo Yao saw Yun Jinsi staring at him angrily. Chao Zhendong and the other young cultivators also looked a little awkward. He hurriedly said, at the same time, the other party can also wait at ease, and even use the terrain to set up formations to ambush us. Of course, by doing this, the demon race will definitely take risks. Just like what you said just now, once the Immortal Island discovers us, they'll quickly come to our aid. However, it's also because of this that the other party's ambush and attacks will definitely be more violent, and they'll kill us in the shortest time possible with a thunderous strike. After hearing Luo Yao's words, Yun Jinsi, Chao Zhendong, and the others fell silent. They wanted to refute, but firstly, Luo Yao's speculation was indeed possible. Secondly, Mu Yu and Lu Ning did not speak, obviously tacitly agreeing with Luo Yao's judgment. The atmosphere in the group became a little gloomy. Yun Jinsi forced a smile and said, Daluo is right. We've indeed been blindly optimistic. It's always right to be more vigilant. It's not too late to heave a sigh of relief when we return to the Immortal Island. Everyone nodded when they heard this. Yun Jinsi looked at the environment of the sea below. After identifying the direction, he silently calculated the distance and suddenly smiled happily. Senior brother Chao, we're almost at the small island where our clan is. Chao Zhendong looked at the environment and also smiled. Ha, you're right. Luo Yao did not say anything. The small island where Yun Jinsi and Chao Zhendong were born was also the place where he grew up. He grew up with Chao Zhendong and Yun Jinsi. He was the same age as Yun Jinsi, while Chao Zhendong was slightly older than them. Both the Chao and Yun clans were born in large clans on the island, and their clans were small cultivator clans to begin with. Later on, Chao Zhendong and Yun Jinsi both displayed extraordinary talent in Dao techniques, so they were sent to Luofu Immortal Island to be apprenticed to their respective clans. Meanwhile, he was an orphan and was raised by an old Taoist priest on the island. Their relationship was like a father and son, but also like a master and disciple. He learned all his ordinary Dao techniques from the old Taoist priest. The old Taoist priest's cultivation base was only at the late stage of the foundation building realm, and he was unable to form his gold core for a long time. In the end, he died of old age, and Luo Yao mourned for him before he left the small island to wander around. He was invited by Yun Jinsi to travel together, and they went to the place where Mu Yu refined pills. Mu Yu and Luo Yao had known each other for a long time, and he had the intention to nurture Luo Yao. Hence, he turned a blind eye and allowed Luo Yao to stay. That was why the pill furnace exploded, and the pills entered Luo Yao's body by mistake. As they approached the small island where they grew up, Luo Yao's emotions wavered slightly, but he restrained himself. Yun Jinsi, Chao Zhendong, and the others did the same. This was not the time for them to leisurely go home to visit their relatives. However, when they passed by the small island, Mu Yu and Lu Ning's expressions changed slightly. After recovering from their shock, Chao Zhendong, Yun Jinsi, and the others' expressions changed drastically as well. This was because the extent of the island's destruction could be seen clearly with the naked eye. They did not even need to use their divine senses to see it clearly. An ominous aura of death was even emanating from the island. Master! Yun Jinsi looked at Mu Yu pleadingly. Mu Yu sighed and led everyone to land on the island. Lu Ning did not go down with them, but she did not object or leave either. She stayed in the air alone. The outcome was undoubtedly a tragedy. The people who lived on the island were slaughtered, and all the buildings were destroyed, turning into rubble and broken walls. Although there were a few small cultivation clans on the island, including the Chao and Yun clans, the highest cultivation base in the clans was only at the foundation building stage. It was obvious that they could not stop the invading enemies, and they could only be slaughtered in the end. Chao Zhendong stared at the Chao mansion that had been reduced to ashes with his mouth agape. He stood rooted to the ground, and his lips trembled as he could not say a word. However, in comparison, the heavens were crueler to Yunjinsi. In the ruins of the Yun mansion, she saw the corpses of her family members who died tragically. Her dignified father, her loving and kind mother, seeing Yunjinsi wail loudly, Luo Yao didn't know what to say for a moment. He wanted to comfort her, but his words were too feeble. Saying that he would avenge the young girl, with his current qi condensation cultivation, was undoubtedly a bit ridiculous. Yunjinsi's own strength was much stronger than his. In Luo Yao's heart, he had always had a good impression of this lively and cheerful young girl. Looking at the crying young girl, Luo Yao felt a little depressed. In the air, Lin Feng also sighed when he saw this. He discovered the tragedy on the island earlier than Mu Yu, Lu Ning, and the others. Unfortunately, the tragedy had already happened by then. The demon clan naturally could not find out the hometown of Luo Yao, Yunjinsi, and the others. Even if they wanted to seek revenge, they would look for Huang Ming and Mu Yu. The island before them was purely created by some demon clan members to vent their anger. Unfortunately, or perhaps it should be said to be a coincidence, this happened to be the hometown of Luo Yao and the others. However, now is not the time to be sad. Lin Feng shook his head slightly and looked into the distant sky. The calm before the storm has passed, and the storm has truly arrived. A moment later, Lu Ning, who was in the sky above the island, was horrified as well. She looked into the sky and saw a crack suddenly opening in the sky. Rolling demonic aura spread out, and then it charged towards the island. Chapter 740. After the appearance of the three mountains of Yingxi, many demons headed to Yingxi, hoping to get a share of the loot or obtain some rare treasures in Yingxi. At this moment, the number of demon clan on the East Sea had decreased sharply, but at this moment in front of Mu Yu, Luo Yao, and the others, there were 3 Demon King Realm Dragon Clan experts, in addition to some Demon Commander and Demon General Realm Dragon Clan experts. These 3 Demon Kings did not include the 2 that were chased away by Lin Feng earlier. Mu Yu and Lu Ning's hearts sank when they saw such a lineup. Lu Ning even began to plan to escape with Luo Yao without looking back. After all, the demons were mainly here for Mu Yu, who was refining medicine. However, the few demons did not think so. They immediately surrounded them, and the void stiffened like a barrier, setting up an inescapable net that prevented Mu Yu, Lu Ning, and the rest from escaping. Without a way out, Lu Ning gave up on other ideas and could only fight side by side with Mu Yu and the rest. In the chaotic battle earlier, Mu Yu lost the voice transmission crystal that contacted his fellow sect members, so he could not inform the Luofu Immortal Island and his master, Huang Ming, to send reinforcements. Fortunately, this small island was not far from the Luofu Immortal Island, so there was still hope. Once the Luofu Immortal Island noticed the commotion here, they would definitely send reinforcements to investigate. However, before the reinforcements arrived, Mu Yu and the rest would have to rely on themselves. However, the difference in strength between the two sides was huge. As soon as they started fighting, everyone was in danger. Mu Yu and Lu Ning could not take care of themselves, so Luo Yao, Yun Jinxi, Chao Zhendong, and the rest could only rely on themselves. Together with the other Golden Elixir Period and Foundation Establishment cultivators, they faced the group of demon commanders and demon generals from the dragon race. At this moment, Yun Jinxi and Chao Zhendong's eyes were about to spit fire at the sight of these demons. Fury and hatred overwhelmed the panic and fear of this sudden ambush. Instead, they activated their divine abilities and magic tools and fearlessly engaged the demon general level dragons in battle. The Luofu Immortal Island was in confrontation with the demons on the other side of the realm passageway all year round. From time to time, demons would break into the East Ocean. Similarly, the cultivators of the Luofu Immortal Island would often enter Tianhuang mainland to train and fight. Therefore, although Yun Jinxi and the others were young and their cultivation levels were not high, they did not lack experience in fights of magical powers. Unfortunately, a moment of rage couldn't make up for the disparity in strength and numbers. Moreover, these dragons had come with hatred and anger in their hearts. Their fighting spirit wasn't inferior to Yun Jinxi, Chao Zhendong, and the others at all. It hadn't been long since they started fighting, but Yun Jinsi and the others were already in danger. Luo Yao, who was only at the qi condensation stage, was in even more danger. In the beginning, Mu Yu was still able to take care of him, but he was soon forced to the point where he couldn't even protect himself. He even had to stay as far away from Luo Yao as possible. Otherwise, in a battle between a Yuanying stage cultivator and a demon king, even a small wave would be enough to cause Luo Yao, who was at the qi condensation stage, to die without a burial ground. Under the attack of a demon general-level jade dragon, Luo Yao was in dire straits. He was about to be torn apart by the dragon's claws. In Luo Yao's field of vision, Chao Zhendong had lost an arm, and half of his body was stained red with blood. His hair was disheveled, and he looked miserable and miserable. He didn't even have time to treat his injuries. He narrowly avoided the attack of a dragon, and immediately faced another opponent. With a swipe of its claws, his protective magic artifact was immediately destroyed. Yun Jinsi's light golden hair, which was like the morning sun, was now stained with blood and filth. Her originally red lips were completely devoid of color. She used all her strength to force back a demon general of the dragon clan, but soon after, an even greater danger befell the young girl. The danger was so great that she almost lost all hope. A demon general of the dragon clan, who had formed his demon core, opened his mouth and spat out a jet of blue flame, burning away her magic artifact and the protective magic power around her body. Then, it rushed towards her, wanting to devour her. However, all of this seemed to have left Luo Yao, because his flesh had already been torn apart by the claws of a jade dragon. Before he could even feel the pain, the young man's tall body had already turned into a mist of blood. I should be dead. Luo Yao strangely found that he could still think. This gave him a very strange feeling, because he could clearly see his body, which had already been shattered into a pool of blood and flesh. What is going on? Luo Yao's heart was filled with fear. Then, he was even more shocked to find that he seemed to be in a round pearl. The golden mist in front of him kept rolling, and there was a flickering purple light hidden in it. After seeing it, he felt strange, but also familiar at the same time. At this time, Luo Yao finally understood that his physical body had indeed been completely destroyed. At this moment, he existed in this strange golden pearl only as a soul. The purple light suddenly surged into his soul, and the next moment, Luo Yao felt his consciousness blur. Many strange and intermittent scenes of unknown meaning kept flashing in his mind. While Luo Yao was in a daze, he discovered that his entire soul had begun to emit a dazzling purple light. Countless disorderly thoughts made Luo Yao's consciousness a mess. Only some of the firmest and most persistent beliefs were retained, and they became clearer and stronger. In the end, they became the only thought in Luo Yao's mind, and the only voice that kept letting out shouts that shook his soul. I don't want to die. I want to save them. Senior Mu, Jin Shi, and the others can't die. The dazzling purple light suddenly erupted and rushed out of the celestial scarlet golden pearl, illuminating the sea and sky within a radius of thousands of miles. Countless rune marks danced in the flames, illuminating the void and branding every inch of space, causing the space to tremble. Even Mu Yu, Lu Ning, and the group of Monster King powerhouses could not help but look at the celestial scarlet golden pearl even though they were still fighting. Compared to Mu Yu and the others who were just shocked, the group of Dragon Clan powerhouses all felt a shudder from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if they were facing an extremely terrifying existence, a monarch that they innately feared. This made the few Dragon Kings feel shocked and ridiculous. As members of the Dragon Clan, they were born with pride and dignity. Under the dragon might, most of the monster clans would feel reverence toward them. However, there was almost no race that could make the Dragon Clan feel reverence and disregard the difference in cultivation base. Unless. The three jade dragons immediately widened their eyes and stared blankly at the golden pearl that suddenly emitted a purple light. The demonic dragon that had destroyed Luo Yao's body was trembling all over. It curled up and didn't dare to move. It wanted to escape, but it felt weak all over and couldn't even move one of its claws. As the purple light flickered, a large amount of golden mist suddenly surged out of the celestial scarlet golden pearl. It rapidly condensed in the sky and turned into a faint golden body that flashed with purple light. The body's shape, limbs, and facial features were very similar to a human's, but it was only a general resemblance. Complicated purple light patterns appeared on the surface of the body as if they were engraved on it. The hair on its head was completely silvery white, and it was long and draped over its back. However, if one looked closely, they would discover that it was not just hair. Instead, it was long silvery white hair that extended from the back of its head all the way to its tailbone. The hair was limited to the left and right sides of the spine. The two sides of the body revealed skin that was similar to a human without obvious hair, and there were also dazzling purple light patterns on it. The end of the hair that extended to its tailbone turned into a huge hair tail that swayed left and right behind it. The half-human, half-monster body had the same facial features as Luo Yao. However, its cheeks were also covered in purple light patterns. There was also a long horn on both sides of its head and in the middle of its forehead. The runes on the 3 horns were even denser, and they emitted terrifying demonic power waves. The light emitted from Luo Yao's eyes was completely purple. As far as he could see, the void began to collapse layer by layer and turned into nothingness. Roar! The newborn Luo Yao raised its head to the sky and let out a long roar. 4 sharp teeth that resembled those of a dog and a dragon were revealed. This roar instantly caused everyone's vision to darken. They felt as if their souls were about to jump out of their bodies from this long roar. The light in the eyes of some dragons with lower cultivation levels was directly extinguished, and they fell straight down towards the sea and the island below. Their demon souls were directly shattered by Luo Yao's roar, and they were roared to death. At this moment, even the 3-headed dragon king's claws were completely numb. They lowered their huge dragon heads, and the scales on their bodies opened and closed. They were actually expressing their subservience. Let alone resisting, they did not even have the thought of escaping. Mu Yu and the others stared dumbfoundedly at the figure that was emitting purple light. They were all speechless. At this moment, the only person who could still think normally was Lin Feng, who was in the void. He looked at the newborn Luo Yao and raised his brows slightly. He's actually not the reincarnation of Yu Huang Heavenly Sea. TSK, interesting, really interesting. I'm getting more and more interested. Although the sky scarlet golden bead had transformed into Luo Yao's new body, Lin Feng could feel that the mental connection between him and the sky scarlet golden bead had not been severed. He could clearly see the entire process of Luo Yao's transformation. He's not a spirit monster, but a demon. His soul is clear and simple, and not the soul of a reincarnation, but... The corner of Lin Feng's mouth curved into a faint smile. But there are other secrets hidden in his soul, and there's something special about it. Interesting. This is really a pleasant surprise. After a long roar, Luo Yao's body was still flashing with purple light, but the purple light in his eyes gradually receded. His gaze became clear again, but at this moment, his pupils were no longer black, but purple. At this moment, Luo Yao seemed to have regained his consciousness, and the aura around him was no longer violent. There was even some confusion in his eyes. He looked down at his new body, and raised his hand to touch the 3 long horns on his head. Luo Yao opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but no sound came out. For a moment, he was stunned on the spot. He didn't speak, and the dragons didn't dare to move. They could only stay where they were and wait for their punishment. The legend was too ancient, and it had been thousands of years since it had appeared. Therefore, Mu Yu and the rest were only shocked by Luo Yao's transformation, but they didn't understand the deeper meaning. However, the 3 strong practitioners of the Demon King realm could recognize Luo Yao's new appearance. The Yudu race that had once ruled over the vast land of Heaven Wasteland and made tens of thousands of demons bow their heads. The purple brilliance that seemed to be able to sweep through everything and intimidate all worlds was the Yudu's dark flower, which had dominated the heaven primordial world in the past. It was true that not every Yudu beast had the realm and power of the heavenly seas Yudu. The Yudu race was also divided into juveniles and adults, and there were strong and weak among the same race. However, Luo Yao had reconstructed his corporeal body with the sky scarlet golden bead and reached the late stage of the Demon King realm. It was no problem for him to sweep through all the dragons in front of him. The double suppression in terms of power and innate mentality made it impossible for the dragons to resist. Chapter 741. Because he was not used to his new body, the demonic power emitted from Luo Yao's body almost spread uncontrollably, shaking the surrounding void. Although he was no longer manic, Luo Yao's demonic power aura was still somewhat chaotic. His self-awareness was currently in a state of confusion, and he was also afraid of the sudden unknown change in his body. The people living near the East Sea Luo Fu Immortal Island were not only cultivators, but also ordinary people. Because of the proximity to the Demon Realm Passage, they had been in a state of constant conflict with the Demon Clan. Both sides' hands were stained with each other's blood. This also caused the relationship between the human clan and the demon clan to be very hostile and even full of hatred. In Luo Yao's previous understanding, although he did not have any blood feud with the demon clan, he had a very bad impression of them. Luo Yao had also personally killed small Qi refinement stage demons. But now that he had suddenly become a demon clan, this change inevitably caused Luo Yao to have mixed feelings. Even though he had always been calm and steady, he also felt frightened and anxious at this moment. What made him even more uneasy was that he did not understand why such a sudden change would happen to his body. Previously, there were countless fragmented scenes in his mind that were completely incoherent, making it quite difficult for him to organize his thoughts in a short period of time. The subservient and respectful appearance of the Dragon Clan did not make Luo Yao feel satisfied and proud. Instead, the vigilant gazes of Yun Jinxi, Chao Zhendong, Lu Ning, and the others made Luo Yao's heart ache. Other than vigilance and fear, there was also a faint hostility and hatred in the eyes of his original companions. Luo Yao subconsciously reached out to them. Just as he was about to speak, he realized that everyone retreated as if they were conditioned to fire. Yun Jinxi exclaimed, "Don't come over." Luo Yao retracted his hand as if he was stung by a scorpion. He stared blankly at the young girl in front of him. He could see shock, vigilance, wariness, and fear in her eyes. Apart from that, there was also anger and hatred. Yun Jinxi's entire family had died tragically under the claws of the Demon Clan. She had just fought a bloody battle with the Demon Clan and was almost killed by them. His change was too sudden, so Luo Yao could understand her reaction. But the faint disgust in the young girl's eyes made Luo Yao suddenly feel despair. "Luo Yao, can you still recognize us?" Mu Yu carefully observed Luo Yao's expression and asked tentatively. Luo Yao said bitterly, "Senior Mu, I recognize you. I don't know what happened to me. I don't understand." Lu Ning stared fixedly at Luo Yao and suddenly said, "You're a demon, but your demon soul resides in your body. When your body was destroyed earlier, your demon soul relied on a certain treasure to reconstruct your body." She paused for a moment before continuing, "The physical body of the Yao clan is one that is completely compatible with your original Yao soul. You are the real you now. From your soul to your physical body, you are all Yao." At this moment, Lu Ning's expression was stiff, but she was shouting incessantly in her heart. "There's really something wrong with Luo Yao." Hearing this, Luo Yao's lips moved, and his expression became even more bitter. As soon as Lu Ning spoke, he was clearly able to sense that Yun Jinxi, Chao Zhendong, and the others' gazes towards him became even more hostile. Obviously, they felt that Luo Yao had always been concealing his identity and deceiving them, and they felt even more strongly that Luo Yao harbored ulterior motives. Everyone immediately fell into silence again, and the atmosphere in the space became even more solemn. Mu Yu looked at Luo Yao and wanted to speak, but he did not know where to start. Although he did not know the origin of Luo Yao's demon body, he knew that Luo Yao was different from ordinary demons based on the Dragon Clan's behavior. It was difficult for him to handle the sudden change in the situation. Not to mention him, even his master, Huang Ming, could not make the decision. At first, Mu Yu was also angry that he was deceived, and he was embarrassed like an 80-year-old woman giving birth to her child. However, when he looked closely at Luo Yao's bitter expression, Mu Yu sighed in his heart. Forget it, forget it. We're acquainted after all, and we almost had the fate of being master and disciple. Just when Mu Yu was about to speak, a terrifying aura suddenly shrouded over, causing everyone present to be horrified. Such an aura could only be possessed by an essence soul expert. A middle-aged man appeared from the void and looked at Luo Yao with a sullen expression. Great Master Uncle. Mu Yu was slightly astonished. The person that had come was the big disciple of Tao Venerable Luo Fu. When Tao Venerable Luo Fu and Great Sage Cheongqi were in a standoff, he had been guarding Luo Fu Immortal Island. Actually, he didn't need to make a move to help Mu Yu and the rest. Instead, it was Mu Yu's master, Huang Ming, who was in the later stage of yuanying. However, the aura that had suddenly burst forth from Luo Yao had alarmed this strong practitioner, so he had no choice but to make the trip personally. The middle-aged man took a glance at Luo Yao and turned to ask Mu Yu, Lu Ning, and the rest, what's going on? Lu Ning didn't make a sound, and after Mu Yu forced himself to explain the situation, the middle-aged man's gaze flickered slightly. He looked at Luo Yao again and examined him carefully. Luo Yao's appearance matched his impression of the demon race that he had only heard of but had never seen. Yudu. This discovery made the middle-aged man suck in a cold breath secretly. He focused all his attention on Luo Yao and waved his hand. Dozens of water pillars rose from the sea below, and dozens of clouds descended from the sky above. They connected from top to bottom and locked Luo Yao inside. Luo Yao himself didn't have any emotions toward this action, but he could feel his spirit and demon power becoming restless uncontrollably again. What was even more terrifying was that terrifying purple light flashed in Luo Yao's purple eyes again. Wherever the purple light reached, the restrictions that the middle-aged man had set up instantly started to crumble. The middle-aged man frowned slightly when he saw this, and he said patiently, I'm bringing you back to Luofu Celestial Island to check on your body condition and see what exactly happened to you. If you really don't know anything, this trip can also resolve the doubts in your heart. No matter what, the Yuda clan that had vanished for over 4,000 years had reappeared in the world, and they had even appeared in the Divine Land. They definitely couldn't let them go so easily, and they had to investigate the whole matter. Furthermore, the power that Luo Yao had displayed now would be extremely destructive if he caused trouble. Especially looking at Luo Yao's reaction just now, his self-control was extremely weak, and he might overreact if he was slightly stimulated by the outside world. They were in troubled times now, and if he was allowed to move freely, who knew if someone would provoke him? The middle-aged man had already made a decision in his heart. It didn't matter if he persuaded him with kind words or captured him with violence. It would be best if he could bring Luo Yao back to Luofu Celestial Island for his master, Tao Venerable Luo Fu, to check. If he couldn't, he would kill him on the spot. Who knew that it would be better if he didn't think that way? Just as he thought that, Luo Yao in front of him suddenly raised his head to stare at him. His gaze instantly became violent, and a beam of purple Yuda dark flowers shot over. Even though the middle-aged man had reached the primordial spirit realm, he was also shocked. At his cultivation realm, he could stabilize his mind, and normally, only people whose cultivation was higher than his would be able to roughly feel the fluctuations in his heart. Even though he had a faint murderous intent in his heart just now, there wasn't any murderous intent around him at all. Furthermore, he had only just thought, but who knew that Luo Yao would immediately feel it? Looking at this scene, even Lin Feng's face revealed an expression of interest. How did he do it? Such a nimble consciousness that surpasses common sense. Could it be a special innate talent of the Yudu race? Yudu dark flower was incomparably overbearing. It looked like it was just a faint wisp, but it seemed to have the power to pierce through heaven and earth, directly turning the sky into nothingness. Mu Yu and the rest shuddered in fear. The spell that the middle-aged man had laid down to defend himself was destroyed by the purple light, so he could only avoid it temporarily. As expected, it's easy to lose control and cause destruction. Furthermore, he's only at the later stage of yuanying. Even for a Yudu race, isn't he a little too strong? When the middle-aged man thought that, he prepared to reveal his primordial spirit incarnation and activate his magic treasure at the same time. Luo Yao suddenly closed his eyes, and a pained expression appeared on his face. Senior Mu, I don't want to be enemies with you guys. As he said that, Luo Yao's body suddenly flashed with radiance, and his entire body transformed into a beam of purple light. He broke through the void and escaped at an extremely fast speed. The middle-aged man was astonished and wanted to give chase, but the space after Luo Yao escaped seemed to have been sealed. He actually couldn't break through space to chase after him. Although it was only for an instant, with such a delay, he had already lost track of Luo Yao and couldn't catch up. After Luo Yao escaped through the void, he left Luofu Immortal Island and stopped on a stretch of sea, his face full of bitterness. Although he was skeptical about whether Dao Venerable Luofu and the rest would treat him well, he was actually tempted to return to Luofu Immortal Island with Mu Yu and the rest. After all, he wanted to understand the changes in his body. However, as soon as the middle-aged man had the thought of killing him, Luo Yao felt his spirit buzz, and the demon power in his body began to become restless uncontrollably. This made him not dare to stay any longer, so he could only escape. Luo Yao looked at the vast sea in front of him, then at his body that was covered in purple light markings. He turned his head to look at the huge tail behind him and touched the 3 long horns on the top of his head. For a moment, he felt a desolate feeling of having nowhere to go despite the vastness of the world. Suddenly, he felt his body tremble, and then he saw his corporeal body begin to disintegrate, turning into lumps of golden light fog. In the light fog, the mirage golden bead reappeared, and all the fog was absorbed into the light fog, turning it white, and Luo Yao's spirit existed in the light fog. For a moment, Luo Yao even felt a sense of relief, as if he had woken up from a nightmare. However, when he took a closer look at his own spirit, he discovered that although it was a transparent spirit body, the outer appearance of his spirit was that of a half-human, half-demon. Luo Yao suddenly felt like crying but had no tears. Silently looking at Luo Yao in the void, Lin Feng stood in the void and thought to himself, sure enough, just now I didn't use the mirage golden bead to reconstruct my body, but just a projection of my spirit into the mirage golden bead, so my strength is also determined by the mirage golden bead. Now that the effect of the mirage golden bead has ended, I have returned to my original form. After understanding Luo Yao's current situation, Lin Feng appeared in the void. It seems that this is the same key that can solve many problems. Chapter 742. Lin Feng purposely waited for a period of time so that Luo Yao could stabilize his emotions and regain his composure. Through his brief contact and observation, he could confirm that this young man had a firm will and a rational and calm mind. This incident had a great impact on him, but it was not enough to cause him to break down mentally. For the current Luo Yao, the biggest problem was the confusion in his self-awareness and the many unanswered questions. Luo Yao's spirit was in the heavenly scarlet golden bead. Although his thoughts were a mess, he could still maintain his composure and observe the outside world. Then, he discovered that the heavenly scarlet golden bead was carrying him through the void as if it was going somewhere. A moment later, passing through layers of space, a bronze-skinned young Taoist dressed in purple appeared in front of him. He was quietly looking at the Scorpio golden pearl that was flying over. It was Lin Feng whom he had met before. Luo Yao opened his mouth. "Senior, did you bury this bead in my spirit?" He had no intention of blaming him. Instead, he seemed a little anxious. "Do you know what happened to me?" Lin Feng stretched out his palm and caught the heavenly scarlet golden bead. He communicated with Luo Yao's spirit inside the bead. "I already know what happened to you through this bead. This heavenly scarlet golden bead was indeed left behind by me. Previously, I only felt that your spirit was abnormal and that you were fated to meet this bead, so I left it to you. What happened afterward can only be said to be a joke of fate." Luo Yao silently nodded his head. Although it was the heavenly scarlet golden pearl that Lin Feng left behind that changed his fate and could even be said to have completely overturned his past, causing him to break off relations with Mu Yu, Yun Jinxi, and the others, he was able to distinguish between good and bad and did not resent Lin Feng. If it were not for the heavenly scarlet golden bead that awakened his demon soul and temporarily reconstructed his demon body, he would have died under the demon dragon's claws. Even Yun Jinsi, Chao Zhendong, and the others would have suffered. If it was someone who was self-centered, or someone who liked to vent their anger on others to make themselves feel better, they might have other thoughts. For example, as long as Lin Feng personally wiped out the dragons and sent them back to the Luofu Immortal Island, everyone would be happy. No one would die or be injured, and he would not become a member of the demon clan, unable to be tolerated by his former companions. But Luo Yao didn't think so. Whether it was himself, Mu Yu, or the others, they had only met Lin Feng once. They were neither friends nor relatives, so there was no reason for Lin Feng to make a move. "Senior, who exactly am I?" Luo Yao composed himself and asked. Lin Feng said calmly, "That female cultivator was right. You are indeed a member of the monster race. You were born with a monster soul, but your divine soul was separated from your original body and reincarnated as a human. However, the reincarnation did not destroy your true spirit, so you were a monster soul with a human body. As for your roots and race..." Lin Feng paused for a moment, then continued, "Your appearance is like a wolf standing on its hind legs, with 4 limbs like dragon claws, silver white fur, a triangular head, and purple light markings all over your body. These characteristics are the physical characteristics of the Yuda clan in the past. You might not have heard of this kind of monster race when you were a human, because this clan has disappeared for thousands of years. But I think you have some impression of it now." Luo Yao's divine soul swayed slightly, and he made a sigh. "Senior is right. Junior does have an impression of the 2 words Yudu, but many things are fragmented and can't be connected." Luo Yao suddenly laughed. "It seems that my name should be Daluo Yudu. This is my real name. I didn't expect that the nickname that Jin Shi gave me when I was young was actually my real name. This can be considered a lucky hit, ha." Although he was laughing, Luo Yao, or rather, Daluo Yudu's expression was clearly full of worry, and there was no joy in it. Lin Feng looked at him and thought, Daluo Yudu. The person who gave him this name probably isn't as ignorant as that little girl, but has really placed hope in this youth. The person who named him is also very proud. However, there seems to be many secrets hidden in his demon soul, but I wonder what they are. Lin Feng looked silently at the former Luo Yao, the current Daluo. Although this youth didn't hate him, from Lin Feng's own heart, fairly speaking, he did have an ulterior motive. He watched as Daluo was reborn and restored to his original appearance. If he hadn't met him, it was hard to say what would have happened to Daluo, Mu Yu, and the others. Mu Yu and the others might have died from the first attack by the 3 demon kings, the 2 dragons and the Cheongqi, or in the chaotic battle just now. But to the former human youth Luo Yao, it was hard to say which was more fortunate, dying as a human or being reborn as a demon, and not being allowed to live in the world he had lived in. Especially when the events were unfolding, Daluo himself didn't have the right to choose, and could only watch as things happened. However, from the looks of it now, although he was suffering from a huge psychological blow and sighed at how fate played tricks on people, Daluo didn't feel any regret or resentment. He could still remember the only voice in his mind before he died. "I don't want to die. I want to save people. I want to save Senior Mu, Jin Shi, and the others." From that moment until now, Daluo was incomparably sure that he desired power, power that could at least protect himself and those around him. This even made him feel somewhat grateful to Lin Feng. Although he had paid a huge price, how many things in this world could be reaped without sowing? He looked at Lin Feng and bowed solemnly towards Lin Feng. "Thank you for saving my life, Senior." After bowing respectfully, Daluo asked Lin Feng, "Senior, my mind is filled with some consciousness fragments, and I can't retrieve them. Please help me clear up my doubts. How did my previous situation happen?" Lin Feng swept up the heavenly scarlet golden bead and flew towards the entrance of the Ying Ocean. As he flew, he said, "There are many things that you need to find out yourself. Find out the truth of the matter. I will only guide you with some clues." Daluo suddenly came to his senses and said with some embarrassment. Junior was confused. I haven't asked for senior's title. Lin Feng replied plainly, I am the master of the celestial gate, Lin Feng. The one in front of you now is a clone of mine. After taking a look at the Daluo divine soul within the heavenly scarlet golden bead, he continued, this clone was refined from the sorrow iron tree. However, before it became a demon, its constitution changed before it gained sentience, so it cultivated as a human. Daluo came to a realization. So it's the master of the celestial gate. Junior was impolite before. For a moment, Daluo felt a little uneasy looking at Lin Feng. If it wasn't for the awakening of his demon soul, which naturally contained a kind of pride that originated from the Yudu race, he would have bowed down to him. After all, to the former East Sea Qi refinement realm itinerant cultivator Luo Yao, even though Dao Venerable Luo Fu was an existence that was almost like a ruler to the East Sea cultivators and had an outstanding reputation, the master of the celestial gate, Lin Feng, was still a giant figure of the human race that surpassed him. Although it wasn't Lin Feng's real body in front of him, the reverence that came from the bottom of his heart was the same. Lin Feng silently said, this heavenly scarlet golden bead is a treasure that I obtained by chance in the past. Now, it seems that it is indeed fated with you, so I'll temporarily give it to you as a host soul. However, if you want to use this treasure to change your corporeal body, it can only last for a short time. You saw it yourself just now. Every time you change your corporeal body, you need 7 days to recover before you can change it again. The Daluo divine soul finally bowed down in the heavenly scarlet golden bead. Junior is indebted to Senior for giving me a new lease on life. Junior is untalented, but I hope that I can follow Senior to repay your kindness. I hope that Senior can give me this chance. He didn't dare to say that he wanted to be apprenticed to Lin Feng. He had already received a great favor from Lin Feng, and he was gradually understanding what the Yudu race meant. His thoughts turned quickly. If Lin Feng took him as a disciple, it might cause trouble for Lin Feng and cause dissatisfaction in the human cultivation world of the Divine Land. It was fine if it was other demons, but as a Yudu race, his situation was too special. Therefore, what the Daluo divine soul meant was to put himself in a position similar to that of Dao Jiqiang. As long as he could serve Lin Feng and repay his kindness, he wouldn't expect anything more. Of course, his thoughts were still the thoughts of the human race in the past. He didn't want to be someone's mount. Lin Feng smiled faintly. After you recovered your demon body, your innate talent and foundation must be outstanding. Your temperament and willpower are also passable. You and I can be considered fated. Even if you become my disciple, it's nothing. I don't allow others to interfere in who I want to take as my disciple. Lin Feng looked at the Daluo divine soul in the heavenly scarlet golden bead. However, if you want your innate talent to be unleashed and not waste your innate talent, I must first reconstruct your corporeal body that is truly from the Yudu race. Only then can your soul and spirit merge and unleash your potential. If it's a human body, it'll inevitably delay you. Even if you learn the path under me, it'll be twice the effort for half the result. Lin Feng said, your Yudu race controls the supreme cultivation technique of the demon race, the complete volume of heavenly Dao demon scriptures. Although you've left your race, there's no need to worry. As you continue to explore the secrets of your birth, your fated chance will naturally come. The Daluo divine soul nodded. Lin Feng said, therefore, you're not my disciple. I don't need you to follow me. You have your own path to walk. If you have any questions, I can give you some pointers. Thank you, Teacher Lin. The Daluo divine soul bowed again. However, the way he addressed Lin Feng was according to the custom of the Divine Land, half a teacher. There were two kinds of half-teachers in the heaven primordial world. One was the humility of a master. The disciple saw himself as a teacher, but the master didn't consider himself to be the master. There was a difference in their relationship, but they tended to be equal. Usually, it was when a cultivator taught another cultivator a little, but the relationship wasn't as deep as that of a master and disciple, so they were half teacher and half friend. The Daluo divine soul was the second case. Lin Feng had given him a new life. Although he didn't take him in as his personal disciple and didn't teach him the path, he had pointed out the path for him in the future. In other words, he would help him reconstruct his corporeal body. Therefore, the Daluo divine soul still respected Lin Feng as his master. However, he didn't dare to consider himself his disciple. When Lin Feng ordered him to do something, he would do his best like Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and the rest. However, he wouldn't use the name of Lin Feng's disciple in front of outsiders. His attitude was very humble. Rather than calling him half a teacher, it would be more appropriate to call him half a disciple or a disciple in name. However, the heaven primordial world called both situations as half a teacher. Let's go. Your first step in finding the truth will be in this Ying Sea. Lin Feng didn't comment on the way the Daluo divine soul addressed him. At that moment, he had already entered the Ying Sea and was flying above the sea surface that was surrounded by clouds. Chapter 743. Lin Feng currently had 8 personal disciples. One more Grand Luo was not considered a lot. Putting aside the fact that Lin Feng himself actually did not have a limit on the number of disciples he could have, even if there was a limit, 9 was the extreme number. He was still lacking a final disciple. As for the negative impact that news of him taking in a Grand Luo as a disciple would have on the divine land, as well as the turmoil it would bring to both the human and demon worlds, Lin Feng was not too concerned about it. Everything had its pros and cons, and whether it was more or less depended on how it was handled and how the individual handled it. However, it was true that Lin Feng had no intention of imparting the Grand Luo's demon arts, at least not now. After he reconstructed his demon body, he would not impart it for quite some time. At most, he would guide the Grand Luo in their cultivation, and he could help the Grand Luo when he encountered any difficulties. After all, looking at the Grand Luo, Lin Feng suddenly had a vague idea in his mind, and the Grand Luo was the most suitable candidate to carry it out. That way, it would be even more suitable for him to cultivate demon arts, especially if he had the opportunity to cultivate the Heavenly Tao demonic scripture. Lin Feng had his own Heavenly Tao virtue scripture, and was not too concerned about the Heavenly Tao demonic scripture. However, he had a theory, or rather, an experiment that required the Grand Luo and demon arts to verify and serve as an important reference. This was not to use the Grand Luo as a test subject, as it was the most direct and fastest path for the Grand Luo to uncover the truth of his own birth. Compared to learning from a master, this was what the Grand Luo valued the most, which was why it would benefit both parties. The Grand Luo would not suffer any harm, nor would he face any additional danger. Lin Feng would seek greater opportunities for him, but compared to Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and the others, the Grand Luo's path was not up to him to choose, but Lin Feng's planning. This did not fit Lin Feng's philosophy of teaching disciples, which was why Lin Feng said that the Grand Luo was not considered his personal disciple. However, such a situation would naturally not last forever. After the Grand Luo unraveled the truth of his birth, Lin Feng would give him another chance to choose, and it would depend on the Grand Luo himself as to where he would go. It seems like, it really is a key that can solve many problems. As Lin Feng thought about it, he avoided the various illusions in the sanctuary sea and advanced. After the 3 mountains appeared, Lin Feng could clearly sense that the illusions in the sanctuary sea had become stronger and more dangerous. As he was walking, Lin Feng suddenly felt a fluctuation of magic power in the clouds not far ahead. After confirming that it wasn't an illusion, Lin Feng said in his heart, "Are there people fighting?" He broke through the clouds and appeared silently at the side. A man and a demon were fighting. The demon was a golden-winged rock king, while the man was the Yuanian cultivator Xiao Peng, who was suspected to be from the Eastern Heavenly Gate and was a subordinate of the great Zhou Crown Prince Liang Yuan. This time when the 3 mountains of Yinghai appeared, the Emperor of Zhou Yangpan and the Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Hongwu both went to Yinghai. Crown Prince Liang Yuan stayed behind to guard Tianjing City, but this Xiao Peng also came to Yinghai. The golden-winged rock king revealed his true form as a demon, turning into a huge rock that blotted out the sky. As the golden light flashed around his wings, he surrounded Xiao Peng. Xiao Peng's Jade Roving Realm evasion technique was extremely intricate, but it was a pity that it was incomplete. Other than opponents like Zhu Yi whose strength could not be measured using the Yuanying realm, the golden-winged rock race that had the extreme speed of the demon race was one of the few opponents that he could not shake off. This made Xiaopeng feel rather helpless. The golden-winged rock king spoke in human language. Stop struggling pointlessly. Obediently tell me about the Li Green Jade Table. Otherwise, if I capture you, I'll definitely search your soul. Xiaopeng snorted coldly. I'm pressed for time, so I don't want to be entangled with you. Have I let a feathered beast like you look down on me? As he snorted, Xiaopeng put his palms together. Streams of jade-green air currents surged from his body, turning into balls of clear air that floated in the air. It was like an illusory small world, in which starlight could vaguely be seen. Xiaopeng's hand gestures changed again. Suddenly, a door opened in the clear light small world, and a huge suction force came from it. The golden-winged rock king was careless and was almost sucked in directly. It immediately used its supernatural power and flapped its wings, wanting to fly away. However, it was firmly sucked in by the door that opened in the clear light small world. The suction force of the clear light small world and the golden-winged rock king were in a stalemate. Lin Feng was amused watching from the side. When he first met Zhu Yi, Xiaopeng was directly captured without the slightest bit of temper. However, it seemed that this person was not without real skills. At least, the Qingming small world incantation that was inherited from the Elysium could be considered to have some real skills in his Yuanying realm cultivation. As for the victory or defeat between them, Lin Feng was not interested. What attracted his attention was the content of the conversation between the two. The Li Green Jade Table was the name of a magic treasure. Speaking of which, to the current Lin Feng, magic treasures were still very attractive things, but it depended on what they were. Ordinary magic treasures were not very attractive. However, the Li Green Jade Table was an exception. Its value did not lie in the magic treasure itself, but in its relationship with the three mountains of Yingxi. Outside of Yingxi, this treasure was just ordinary. The original owner of the Li Green Jade Table was Tao Master Jin Wan. He was an Essence Soul Realm expert who was active in the Middle Ages tens of thousands of years ago. He had also established a orthodoxy called the Golden Mountain Sect. When the three mountains of Yingxi appeared, Tao Master Jin Wan was one of the cultivators who went deep into Yingxi in hopes of obtaining the Immortal Mountain. However, it was a pity that he died in Yingxi, and there was no successor for the Golden Mountain Sect. Finally, it was buried in the long river of history. There were many Essence Soul Realm mighty figures like Tao Master Jin Wan who were lost in Yingxi and did not return. It was not surprising at all. However, when the three mountains appeared again, there was news that people who saw one of the three mountains, Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, saw Tao Master Jin Wan's magic treasure, the Li Green Jade Table, appear on the mountain. There was more than one witness, and after verifying the authenticity of the news, there were also people who saw it later. However, when the three mountains appeared a few times in the past thousands of years, there were people who passed by Yingzhou Immortal Mountain and could not see the Li Green Jade Table anymore. Therefore, some people speculated that the treasure might have indeed existed on Yingzhou Immortal Mountain before. However, because people who wanted to obtain the Immortal Mountain kept competing with Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, they triggered the Immortal Mountain's restriction, causing the Li Green Jade Table to fall from the Immortal Mountain. Although the Li Green Jade Table was no longer on Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, it had stayed on the mountain for more than 10,000 years after all. Perhaps it would be of great help in finding and subduing Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. Therefore, all these years, the Li Green Jade Table had been used as an important clue to finding Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, and it was valued by everyone who entered Yingxi Immortal Mountain. Lin Feng came out of the void and pointed with his finger, shattering the clear world formed by Xiaopeng's Green Hell Small World incantation. Xiaopeng turned pale with fright, while the golden-winged rock king felt his body relax. However, he did not take the opportunity to attack Xiaopeng. Instead, he looked at Lin Feng warily and said, "Your Excellency." Before he could finish his sentence, Lin Feng flicked his finger, and a purple gas blew him away like a hurricane. The golden-winged rock king's expression changed, and he was shocked and furious at the same time. However, he did not dare to say anything. Realizing that he was no match for Lin Feng, he could only swallow his pride. He turned around, flapped his wings, and flew away, not daring to stay for a moment longer. Xiao Peng's heart skipped a beat when he saw Lin Feng turn around. He sighed and bowed. Junior Xiao Peng greets the master of Mystic Gate. It seemed that he had seen the image of Lin Feng's doppelganger. Lin Feng did not care about this and said calmly, "Tell me." Needless to say, Xiao Peng naturally understood what Lin Feng meant. He swallowed his saliva. Although it was just a doppelganger of Lin Feng's Yuanying stage cultivation base in front of him, judging from his performance when he sent the golden-winged rock king flying with a flick of his finger, there was no room for him to escape or struggle. Even if he wanted to commit suicide, his life and death would not be up to him. Xiao Peng did not dare to hide anything and answered honestly, "Green Li Yuji." Just as he said this, Xiao Peng's eyes suddenly flashed with green light, and his whole body shook violently. Xiao Peng's eyes revealed a horrified expression, and he could only struggle to spit out 2 words. "Little sister." In the next moment, his nascent soul was already burning with raging flames. Lin Feng looked at this scene calmly and shook his head. He raised his right hand in the air like a knife and gently slashed down. The heavenly boundary spell was activated. Xiao Peng's Yuanying stage and the fire on his soul instantly disappeared without a trace, as if it had never appeared. Even though Xiao Peng was already at the Yuanying stage, his back was covered in cold sweat at this moment, as if he had just experienced a nightmare. In the depths of his soul, a mark gradually dissipated, and a cold snort faintly came from it. The sound seemed to gradually go far away, and finally return to calmness. Lin Feng looked at Xiao Peng as if nothing had happened and was as calm as usual. "Tell me." Xiao Peng's mouth was full of bitterness, as if he had eaten a yellow lotus. He was dispirited and answered in a muffled voice, "There are many illusions in Yingxi. Although the space is not as chaotic as the void battlefield, it is also unpredictable. I don't know the specific location of the Green Li Yuji. I only received news that the treasure is rumored to be on a small island in the northeast of Yingxi. That small island and the other 2 islands form a tripod. Not far away from the 3 islands, there are 3 other small islands that also form a tripod. This is the only characteristic to distinguish the landform. However, Yingxi is vast, and the islands on the sea are densely packed. There are also illusions, so there might not be only one island with such landform. I really don't know how to distinguish it and where it is exactly. Although it was the northeast of Yingxi, it was also a vast area that was almost immeasurable. It was surrounded by clouds and surrounded by illusions, and there were many obstacles when the spiritual senses of a level 3 essence soul realm cultivator scanned and searched. So this clue is still very vague. But Lin Feng only slightly nodded his head and then left by tearing through the air. Xiao Peng was stunned on the spot. Only then did he realize that he was already free, but he did not feel relaxed at all. What should he do next really gave Xiao Peng a headache. Lin Feng tore through the sky and flew forward. He had just observed Xiao Peng's state of mind and confirmed that he was not faking it. Although Xiao Peng had only heard rumors, it was still a favorable clue. Compared to the Yingzhou immortal mountain that could move freely in Yingxi, even if the verdant jade table could run, it would at least be restricted by Yingxi. Moreover, there was a rough direction for him to find, so it was much easier to find it. Moreover, it was not easy to find the 3 mountains of Yingxi. If he wanted to control the immortal mountain, he would have to go through a fight to see who was more brilliant. The verdant jade table was also something that he could make use of. After a long period of flying and searching, he also encountered a few groups of cultivators or demons who were also rushing towards the verdant jade table after hearing the news. Thus, Lin Feng knew that he was gradually approaching his destination. Finally, 3 small islands in a triangular shape appeared in Lin Feng's vision. Through the clouds, Lin Feng could immediately sense that an intense battle was unfolding not far away. Chapter 744. Second senior brother, how much further? Amidst the clouds above the Ying Ocean, a tall, skinny, and tanned young man asked. He was Lin Feng's 6th disciple, Li Yuanfang. He was currently sitting cross-legged on the back of Jiayu, who was in his true form, while Zhu Yi and White Light, who was in his human form, were beside him. Zhu Yi's eyes were slightly closed, and his gaze was like the abyss of the deep sea. Amidst the calmness and indifference, there were tempestuous waves that were constantly flickering. In the void above his head, a humongous tortoise light projection floated. Its length was even longer than Jiayu, who was in his true form. The tortoise's eyes were also as calm as the vast and boundless ocean. Tens of millions or even billions of light-patterned talismans on the tortoise shell on its back were constantly being destroyed and reborn, like bubbles in the sea. These talismans kept combining without stopping for even a moment. From afar, it seemed to be a huge 8 trigrams pattern. The Ying Ocean is filled with illusions that constantly cause interference. Fortunately, the information we've obtained previously has already pointed us in the general direction, so we can still find it. Zhu Yi's gaze was still as deep as the ocean. If one looked closely, they would discover that there were also 8 trigrams patterns constantly spinning in his eyes. However, Zhu Yi's tone was more relaxed. It's not far. Following the direction we're heading in, it's about 500 kilometers away. As he said that, Zhu Yi's expression changed slightly. Oh, someone's already there. Looks like we're not the only ones who have received the news. Many people are interested in this greenly jade. Li Yuanfang said calmly, judging from the current situation, the greenly jade is a treasure that has the closest relationship with the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. It's also the most valuable clue to find the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. The group of people flew quickly and broke through the clouds. Suddenly, 3 small islands appeared in their line of sight. Zhu Yi took a glance and immediately saw a faint golden radiance shining on one of the islands. The source of the golden light was a short table made of green jade. As the green light flickered, a massive number of faint golden runes emerged, emitting a dazzling golden light that soared into the sky. However, the golden light was suddenly cut off when it reached about 100 meters above the island, as if there was an invisible barrier around the island. After being blocked by the transparent barrier, the golden light began to distort slightly. It looked very unreal, like a dream. Zhu Yi, Li Yuanfang, and the rest all came to a sudden realization, so there is a powerful illusion on this island, this Qing Liu is trapped by the illusion. At this moment, there were a total of 5 parties confronting each other in the sky above the island. One of them was an old acquaintance. They were cultivators from the Great Qin dynasty, led by the primordial soul realm expert, Dao Master Changluo. The princess of the Great Qin dynasty, Shi Xingyun, was also among them. Of the remaining 4 groups, 2 were demons from Tianhuang mainland and the other 2 were human forces. Of the 2 demon groups, one was from the golden-winged Great Peng race. However, the demon Great Sage leading them was not a golden-winged Great Peng, but a bird-type demon whose entire body was surrounded by black fog. It was the sun-swallowing condor that had submitted to the Golden Rock Great Sage. The rolling black fog seemed to be able to devour immeasurable light. Even the golden-winged Great Pengs beside him, who obeyed his orders, retreated to maintain a distance from him. The other demon group was from the dragon race. The Dragon King leading them was a brontosaurus that had attained the indestructible demon soul realm. The dragon race had different innate divine powers. Be it Jiayu of the smelting black dragon race, Bai Guang of the white jade dragon race, or the falling waves Dragon King of the sea dragon race, they were all the same. As for the red thunder dragon king of the brontosaurus race, his race's innate divine power was the ability to control the 8 desolation thunder unique to the brontosaurus race. In the history of the brontosaurus race, there had once been a powerful expert who had evolved the power of the 8 desolation thunder to an extremely powerful level. Its power was almost comparable to the Thunder Emperor's Great Tao of 9 Heavens Thunder and the Grand Emperor's Chaotic Immortal Slaying Thunder. Although this Red Thunder Dragon King could not be compared to the ancestor of his race, his strength, which had attained the indestructible demon soul realm, was not to be underestimated. The other 2 groups of human cultivators who were eyeing Qing Liu and the others covetously, were dressed in the same uniform. Their white robes were embroidered with blue waves, and they had long swords hanging from their waists. His magical power aura was as sharp as a sword and as vast as the ocean. Two kinds of power concepts that did not match well were perfectly reflected in their bodies at this moment. Without needing to see who the cultivator leading the team was, Zhu Yi and the others could recognize that these people were cultivators of the Shanghai sword sect from their mana aura. And the middle-aged man standing at the front of the team, facing off against Tao Master Changlu, Red Thunder Dragon King, and Devouring Sun Great Saint, was Venerable Tidehark, one of the 4 primordial spirit great sword cultivators of the Shanghai sword sect. Compared to the Shanghai sword sect cultivators led by Venerable Tidehark, the other group of human cultivators seemed very unfamiliar. Everyone wore azure robes, but their dressing was relatively more casual. However, the aura of their magic power was also vast and ethereal. It was not inferior to the Shanghai sword sect cultivators at the side. In fact, it was even faintly superior. Facing them was like facing the vast sky. Zhu Yi's gaze fell on the leader, and his eyes slightly moved, appearing more and more serene. He was really too familiar with this person. Many years ago, when he was still living in the house of the Marquis of Xuanji, every morning he would wake up and greet her outside the courtyard. According to the ethics that Zhu Hongwu believed in, this person was his first mother. And his real mother, Meng Bingyun, according to the rules of the house of the Marquis of Xuanji, he could only call her aunt in public. Zhu Yi's expression was calm, silently looking at the woman who only looked to be around 20 years old, faintly saying, "Madam Xiao, long time no see." Compared to the official wife of the Marquis of Xuanji in Zhu Yi's memories, the madam of the house of the Marquis who had the title of Imperial Court, even though the woman in front of him had the same appearance, she seemed a bit younger. Even though the Madame Xiao in the house of the Marquis of Xuanji used treasures and pills to prolong her life and maintain her youth, in the end she still had a mortal body. Even if she took good care of herself, she still looked over 30. Naturally, the power of time would uncontrollably leave traces on her body. And the Madame Xiao in front of him, at a glance it was somewhat hard to tell her age. At a rough glance she seemed to be in her early 20s, but at a closer look she seemed to be a teenage girl. The aura of the two were also completely different. The Madame Xiao of the house of the Marquis was graceful and noble, having the bearing of a matriarch, but she was like a vine wrapped around a large tree. Her strength and aura originated from her being the Zhou dynasty's grand tutor, the official wife of the Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Hongwu. Originated from her husband, originated from her position, originated from the laws of the imperial court. But the Madame Xiao in front of him displayed a powerful aura that originated from her own body, originating from the power of her own cultivation. She only stood there calmly, completely unlike the Madame Xiao in the house of the Marquis who maintained her demeanor, appearing to be very casual. But no matter if it was the Taoist Master Changlu, the Crimson Thunder Dragon King, the Tide-Hearing Sword Venerable or the Devouring Sun Great Saint, they all had to maintain respect towards her. Just by standing there casually, she seemed to faintly become one with the world, displaying a mysterious concept of being one with the world. Her mana undulations were as vast as the sky. Apart from having the same facial features as Madame Xiao, there was nothing else that was similar to her. Impressively, she was also a primordial spirit expert. Zhu Yi could even keenly feel that amongst the 5 primordial spirit experts present, even though they were all at the first level of the primordial spirit or the first level of the undying demon's soul realm, the strength of the woman in front of him was the strongest. He recalled that his master, Lin Feng, had mentioned the way of the heavens and beings and understood. The way of the heavens and beings has a certain probability of helping a primordial soul adept to break through their current realm. If she completely masters the way of the heavens and beings, I'm afraid there's a high chance that she'll directly reach the realm of void return. While everyone was paying attention to each other, they also looked at Zhu Yi, Li Yuanfang, and the others. That woman also stared at Zhu Yi, sizing him up. Meng Bingyun herself isn't good, but she has a good son who surpasses my, Xiao Qingqing's children. As soon as she said this, a cold light flashed in the eyes of a beautiful girl behind her. However, she lowered her head and did not look up at Zhu Yi. "Oh, Xiao Qingqing." Zhu Yi nodded. "So this is your real name, Mrs. Xiao. But for me, it makes no difference. The person who caused my mother to vomit up blood and die that day was you." Your clone and your true self are the same. Although Meng Bingyun was deeply in love with Hongwu, even to the extent that her Dao heart was shattered, she still tried to confuse Hongwu in the end. Xiao Qingqing said indifferently, our paths are different, and in the end, we can't work together. Such an ending is also inevitable. Even if I didn't make a move, Hongwu would have made a move himself. Her tone was calm, but there was a strong confidence that came from holding the pearl of wisdom. It was completely different from Mrs. Xiao in the Marquis's manner, who was graceful and cultivated in the secular world. On the contrary, it was somewhat similar to Zhu Hongwu. Zhu Yi's expression was also calm, and not a trace of anger could be seen. However, it caused everyone present to feel a faint chill in their hearts. Those who follow will prosper, those who oppose will perish. Those who don't walk the same path will be killed. You are indeed the same kind of person as that father of mine. His gaze fell on the girl behind Xiao Qingqing who had her head lowered. Silently he said, although Zhu Yong and Zhu Lu are the direct successors of Marquis Xuanji's title according to the law, this is the true successor of the path that you and my father have nurtured, right? She's of the same bloodline as you guys. There's no need to lower your head, the killing intent and enmity in your heart towards me is already so strong that it's about to materialize and break through the clouds. Zhu Yi placed his hands behind his back, his expression indifferent. If you want to kill your own flesh and blood, then make a move. It's just that you won't have the chance to regret. The girl who had her head lowered all along raised up, coldly staring at Zhu Yi. She took her mother's surname, her name was Xiao Huayang. She was the child born from the union of Zhu Hongwu and Xiao Qingqing. Since young, she followed Xiao Qingqing in cultivating the Tao. Zhu Hongwu also often gave her pointers. No matter if it was her own talent, potential or current strength, she far surpassed Zhu Hongwu's disciples Zhu Yong, Zhu Lu, and the others in the house of the Marquis of Xuanji. Right now she is already an early-stage Yuanying cultivator. Her magical powers and combat ability far surpasses most of her peers. However, Zhu Yi's notoriety is known to the outside. Back then when he went to Tianjing City to take the exam, he killed a late-stage Yuanying ancestor at the late stage of the Golden Elixir. This kind of combat ability is really heaven-defying. That's why even though Xiao Huayang was called out by Zhu Yi, she did not immediately reply. However, the enmity and killing intent in her gaze did not diminish in the slightest and was not concealed in the slightest. Xiao Qingqing lightly raised her hand, blocking her daughter. Right now you are not his opponent. Back then when I stopped you from leaving the East Sea, it was my mistake. But now you can no longer make a move and can only be dealt with by your mother. Xiao Huayang used magical power to reply in a muffled voice, Mother, back then I already said that this child should not have been kept. He should have been dealt with long ago. I wouldn't have had to endure this anger today. Chapter 745. Faced with Xiao Huayang's dissatisfaction, Xiao Qingqing said calmly, Zhu Yi was accepted as a disciple by the sect master of Meng Xian. Today, he has indeed made some achievements. However, you have been cultivating longer than him. Now that your cultivation level has fallen behind him, you need to reflect on yourself. Xianmen Tianzong's Taoist techniques are unique, but you, Huayang, have been wholeheartedly trained by me and your father. How are the Taoist techniques and supernatural powers that you have cultivated inferior? Xiao Qingqing said silently, although you have been through a lot of hardships over the years, your life is still too smooth. It is normal for you to feel indignant and depressed today. However, you must not let these emotions corrode your will. Instead, you must know your shame and be brave. In the future, you will return this humiliation to the other party 1,000 times over. Only complaining and cursing is the behavior of a coward. Xiao Huayang took a deep breath. Her expression was gloomy, but she had calmed down. She said hatefully, I understand. Let's see who can attain the primordial divinity realm first. I will endure today's humiliation, but in the future, I will return it 1,000 times over. Xiao Qingqing smiled. That's right. Meng Bingyun can't beat me, and the bastard she gave birth to can't beat my daughter either. She looked at Zhu Yi calmly. Xian Yi. Is this the Taoist name you signed on the invitation to Liang Yuan? Although Hongwu has always said that he will personally lecture you, if you are also here for the Li Qing Jade Table, then let me see what you have up your sleeves. As a primordial divinity realm adept, even if she wanted to kill Zhu Yi now, she had to be wary of Lin Feng, who was behind Zhu Yi. Although Lin Feng did not care much about the battle between Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and the others and the first-tier primordial soul realm cultivators, this was only Lin Feng's opinion. To outsiders, Xiao Yan and the others were still Yuanying realm cultivators. In the opinion of ordinary people, regardless of the outcome, it was normal for Xiao Huayang to challenge Zhu Yi. Even if Zhu Yi lost, it was because of his lack of skill. However, if Xiao Qingqing took the initiative to make things difficult for Zhu Yi, he would be suspected of bullying the weak. The latter would easily provoke the protective Lin Feng. However, if it was Zhu Yi who took the initiative to make an enemy of Xiao Qingqing, then it would be a different matter. Primordial soul powerhouses all had their own dignity and self-confidence. It was impossible for a primordial soul master to endure being bullied by a Yuanying stage cultivator just because he had a good master and a great sect behind him. Instead, it was completely impossible for a primordial soul master to retreat. I will not take the initiative to attack you, but if you dare to act wildly in front of me, I will kill you directly. Even if you provoke your master, I will run if I cannot defeat you. If I cannot, I will compensate you. If I cannot, I will fight to the death. Even if they died, most primordial soul realm cultivators could not tolerate the humiliation of a Yuanying cultivator. If they endured this humiliation, it would not be a matter of their Dao heart being clouded, but a matter of their Dao heart being shattered. Of course, if they already knew that this Yuanying cultivator was ridiculously strong after a real fight, and that although he was a Yuanying cultivator, he had enough power to compete with him, then the primordial soul realm cultivator would naturally readjust his psychological position and way of dealing with things, and would no longer look at people with the old standards. Therefore, whether it was primordial Gue Shui and the fallen dragon king in the past, or Xiao Qingqing, Tide Listening Sword Venerable, Sun Devouring Great Saint, and others at the moment, before they understood the details of Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi, they all had the same attitude towards them. Even if Xiao Qingqing disliked Zhu Yi, she would not take the initiative to attack him. If that day came, it would mean that the great Zhou dynasty, Eastern Heavenly Gate, and Xianmen Tianzong had completely fallen out and an all-out war would break out. At that time, Xiao Qingqing naturally would not have any scruples. But now, they were fighting for the Qingli Jade Tables. If Zhu Yi also wanted the Qingli Jade Tables, then he would be in Xiao Qingqing's way. Everyone would have to rely on their own abilities, and there would be no problem of the strong bullying the weak or the primordial soul bullying the Yuanying. Zhu Yi stood calmly on Jie Feng's back, his purple robe fluttering in the void. He said indifferently, Xiao Qingqing, you want to see my methods? That's great, I also want to fight with you to see who is stronger and who is weaker. Back in the days, Heavenly Gate could be considered to have left an illustrious name in history. I am actually very happy that Heavenly Gate's Dao techniques and supernatural powers have reappeared in the world. The competition of hundreds of schools is the golden age of Dao techniques. I just don't know, how much of Heavenly Gate's orthodox heritage has your Eastern Heavenly Gate obtained? Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Although they had heard of Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao and the others' fierce names, they were still shocked that Zhu Yi dared to challenge Xiao Qingqing, a primordial soul expert, with his mid-stage Yuanying cultivation. Among everyone present, Dao Master Chang Lu and the cultivators of the Great Qin dynasty had the deepest understanding of Zhu Yi and the others' strength. Although they were still unsure of the outcome of the battle between the mid-stage Yuanying Zhu Yi and Xiao Qingqing, at least they were still mentally stable. Shi Xingyun looked at Zhu Yi and smiled as he shook his head, this is indeed his style. On the other hand, Devouring Sun Great Sage and Crimson Thunder Dragon King were slightly surprised that Eastern Heavenly Gate had reappeared part of the Heavenly Gate's orthodoxy. Although they knew that Xiao Qingqing and the others had extraordinary strength, they did not know the other party's strength until they actually fought. Now that they knew, the two great demons could not help but have some doubts. Although it had been destroyed for many years, the Heavenly Gate was still very famous in Tianhuang mainland. Although many cultivators of the Great Qin dynasty and the Canghai sword sect were also shocked, Dao Master Chang Lu and Sword Venerable Tidehark's expressions did not change at all. It was obvious that they already knew about it. The higher-ups of the Great Qin dynasty naturally knew about the existence of Eastern Heavenly Gate. It was an important force under the Great Zhou dynasty, so it was impossible for the Great Qin dynasty not to pay attention to it. It was just that they were not sure about the specific details. As a large sect that was attached to the Great Zhou dynasty like Eastern Heavenly Gate, it was impossible for the Canghai sword sect to not know about it. However, Eastern Heavenly Gate had always been low-key, so Sword Venerable Tidehark and the others were not sure about it. The Eastern Heavenly Gate cultivators behind Shao Qingcheng, including Xiao Huayang, looked at Zhu Yi coldly. The appearance of the three mountains in Yinghai this time concerned the fate of the Great Zhou dynasty, and it was also a great opportunity for Eastern Heavenly Gate. Both the Great Zhou dynasty and Eastern Heavenly Gate had decided to take this opportunity to attack with all their might. Eastern Heavenly Gate was naturally prepared to surface, so they did not care when Zhu Yi pointed out their background. Instead, all of them sneered. In their eyes, Zhu Yi, who took the initiative to challenge Shao Qingcheng, was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. He was overestimating himself. Very well, but remember, you won't have the chance to regret it. Shao Qingcheng's expression did not change. She merely lifted her eyelids and looked at Zhu Yi with immense pressure, causing Jiayu, White Light, and Li Yuanfang's expressions to turn solemn. After saying that, Shao Qingcheng did not attack immediately. Instead, she looked at the Liqingyu jade table on the small island below. Similarly, Zhu Yi did not attack immediately. Although he had replied to Shao Qingcheng, he did not forget why he came to Yinghai. The Liqingyu jade table was related to Yingzhou Immortal Mountain and the interests of his sect in Yinghai. Zhu Yi clearly distinguished between private affairs and official affairs. At the same time, he would not delay either of them. If the two of them attacked immediately, it would only benefit the other four groups. Both Zhu Yi and Shao Qingcheng were very clear about this. Even if they wanted to attack, they would wait until the illusion on the island was broken and the Liqingyu jade table was obtained. Everyone was here for the Liqingyu jade table, so it was inevitable to fight. Seeing that Zhu Yi and Shao Qingcheng did not attack immediately, the other four Essence Soul Realm experts were not surprised. After all, no one was stupid. Dao Master Changle said, "Let's break the illusion on the island first, then we'll rely on our own abilities." Even if there was a conflict because of the division of loot, they had to get the items first. It would not be good for anyone if the time dragged on like this. After all, there would be people who received the news and rushed over at any time. The more people came, the lower the probability of getting the Liqingyu jade table. Sword Venerable Tide listening nodded. Without saying anything else, he pointed his finger at the small island below. The waves outside the island immediately rolled and turned into water swords, attacking the illusion on the small island. Although they were far away and there were many water swords, no one dared to underestimate the swordsmanship of a Essence Soul Great Swordsman. Those seemingly thin water swords were actually fused with the power of space. They were condensed from a large amount of seawater and were even tougher than most of the rare metals in the world. Under the guidance of Sword Venerable License magic power, they were all indestructible. An ordinary Yuanying stage cultivator would not even be able to withstand one water sword and would be killed in an instant. However, when the water swords stabbed into the illusion, they directly passed through the illusion and cut the island. It was as if the island was completely illusory and the water swords could not hurt it at all. Venerable Tidehark's expression was calm, but his sword momentum changed. The refined steel became soft, and the water swords became soft like ribbons, wrapping around the illusory realm. In an instant, a huge water ball with a diameter of dozens of miles appeared around the island. In the water ball, Sword Venerable License Dharma power began to erode the illusion, making a sizzling sound. Although the illusion that trapped the Liqingyu jade table was very strong, for the experts of the Essence Soul realm, as long as they did not enter it by mistake and discovered it in advance, they would not be confused by the illusion and could destroy it from the outside. Since the decision had been made, the experts were all decisive people. They all took action and destroyed the illusion together with Sword Venerable Listen. A ball of green light appeared in Tao Master Changle's hand. The green light floated onto the water ball and quickly turned into a sapling, taking root on the water ball. The lush roots began to penetrate deeper into the illusion, absorbing the spiritual power that made up the illusion as its own nourishment. As it grew stronger, the illusion gradually withered. As the sun-devouring eagle let out a long cry, the black gas on its body fell onto the periphery of the illusion and gradually dyed it black. The thunder of 8 desolation activated by the Red Thunder Dragon King also fell on the illusion, causing it to shake. Zhu Yi raised his eyes and looked at Xiao Qingcheng. Xiao Qingcheng's expression was indifferent. She raised her right hand, and 7 dazzling scarlet flames gathered in the air above her palm. They gathered at one point and began to rotate continuously, instantly forming a huge spinning wheel of fire. Chapter 746. The scarlet-red wheel of fire spun rapidly in Xiao Qingcheng's palm, then smashed towards the small island below, as if the sun had fallen to the ground. Zhu Yi watched this scene calmly. Beside him, Li Yuanfang asked softly, "Second senior brother, is this the Heavenly Gate's 7-blaze true technique fire wheel?" "That's right. Right now, Xiao Qingcheng is only using her own magic power and divine art. She hasn't used the power of the fire star yet, otherwise it would be even more powerful." Zhu Yi answered, "Although the Heavenly Gate's heavenly fire and 7-blaze true fire aren't among the 7 great true fires in the world, they're still very extraordinary. They're not inferior to the Buddhist Great Thunderclap Temple's Great Sun Glass Fire. They can be said to be one of the top types of fire below the 7 great true fires. The 7-blaze true fire isn't much. Without using the power of the fire star, its power will always be limited. However, the heavenly fire can't be underestimated. Although it's not as stable and unshakable as the Great Sun Glass Fire, its destructive power is even stronger." Ever since they found out about the Eastern Heavenly Gate, Zhu Yi and the other senior and junior brothers had crammed some information about the Heavenly Gate from Lin Feng. Therefore, both Zhu Yi and Li Yuanfang recognized the divine art that Xiao Qingcheng had used. It was a secret technique of the Heavenly Gate, the 7-blaze true technique fire wheel. Before Xianmen Tianzong, the Heavenly Gate was the Holy Land sect that had risen the fastest in the history of the human cultivation world. In just a few thousand years, they had reached their peak and looked down on the divine continent. Unfortunately, the speed at which they rose was also very fast. After the dethroning of the ruthless emperor and the war between the two worlds, they were finally destroyed and became the most dazzling shooting star in the history of the divine land. The reason why the Tian men could rise so quickly and powerfully, other than having many experts and many fated chances, was also related to the style of the sect. They were determined to forge ahead and accept everything. In the great heaven primordial world, no matter if it was the forces of the human clan or the demon clan, powerful paths, techniques, and divine powers would attract their interest. They would broaden their minds and be inspired to create powerful divine powers one after another. With the 9 Glory Sky Collapsing Formation, one of the top formations of the Demon Clan, and the 9 Heavens of Taishu Temple's 9 Heavens of Taishu Temple's 9 Heavens of Taishu Temple as the leaders, this type of powerful Dharma access that drew the power of the stars attracted the attention of the Divine Gate. After that, the strong cultivators of the heavenly gates continued to analyze and comprehend, using their own great path of the heavens as the foundation. They created a set of great 9 planets true technique of the heavens, which also activated the power of the 9 planets of the heavens. Furthermore, it was not a formation, but a magical technique. When the 7 blazing true method fire will was cultivated to the limit, it would be able to draw upon the energy of the dazzling fire star and shake the heavens and the earth. However, using a human to cast a magical technique was much more difficult than using a formation to draw upon the power of the stars. The Divine Gate's great 9 planets true technique of the heavens was not fully completed even after the Divine Gate was completely destroyed. The two great dark light stratagem and the Rahu were still unable to be activated. Therefore, strictly speaking, this magical technique should actually be called the Great Seven Planets True Technique of the Heavens. However, according to the concept of the strong cultivators of the heavenly gates in the past, if the last two magical techniques were also completed, then the 9 planets' magical techniques would be cast at the same time. With the power of an individual's magical technique, it would be able to display a majestic power that was almost comparable to the 9 glory sky collapsing formation. The power of the 9 glory sky collapsing formation was affected by the formation treasure, and the great 9 planets true technique of the heavens was also related to the level of the caster's cultivation. However, if it was cast by the top strong cultivators of the heavenly gates, it would not be much inferior to the perfect 9 glory sky collapsing formation. I wonder how many 7 planets true techniques this eastern heavenly gate has inherited. Zhu Yi watched calmly as Shao Qingqing's 7 planets true technique fire will landed on the surface of the illusory realm above the island. However, it was not brute force or explosive force. Instead, it was the constant rotation and friction of the fire will to wear down the power of the illusory realm. Zhu Yi did not stay idle either. He made a hand seal, and the giant tortoise shadow above his head also landed on the island. None of the 6 of them would use their trump cards, as that would only benefit the others. However, none of them could think about not making a move. They could sit on the fishing platform and hope to use the others as cannon fodder. Otherwise, they could not blame the others for joining forces and chasing them out after the illusory realm was opened. Everyone had this kind of tacit understanding, and Zhu Yi was no exception. The giant tortoise shadow kept growing in size as it landed. In the end, it was almost as big as the island. It directly lay on the surface of the illusory realm and stopped moving. However, Shao Qingqing, Sword Venerable Watching Tide, Red Thunder Dragon King, and the others raised their eyebrows slightly. This was because they could clearly feel that the illusory realm of the island was gradually becoming quiet after being pressed by the giant tortoise, as if it had fallen into a deep sleep. The activity of the illusory realm's power was declining, and the internal spiritual chi kept slowing down until it gradually became still. The countless talismans on the back of the giant tortoise, which formed the pattern of the 8 trigrams, also began to flash. The mysterious power surged, constantly deducing the changes of the illusory realm, and also pointing out the illusory realm's strength and weakness. At this moment, the illusory realm on the island was no longer a secret to everyone. Once the illusory realm was broken and the illusory changes were exposed, not to mention these primordial soul stage powerhouses, even the Yuanying stage, golden elixir period, and even the foundation establishment stage cultivators would not be afraid. This time, even Dao Master Chang'e looked at Zhu Yi in surprise. No wonder he dared to challenge Shao Qingqing, who is in the primordial soul stage, as a middle Yuanying stage cultivator. Such magical power is indeed impressive. The eyes of Venerable Tidehark, Red Thunder Dragon King, and Devouring Sun Sage also flickered slightly. Although Zhu Yi was the last to make a move, it was this middle Yuanying stage junior who played the most important role in breaking the illusory realm on the island. However, as soon as the illusory realm was broken, the green jades set on the island naturally escaped. It directly turned into a green shadow and broke through the void to escape. Devouring Sun Sage was the first to let out a long roar. As the black fog rolled and covered the sky, he had already revealed his true form of the devouring sun condor and surrounded the green shadow. The green shadow rushed left and right, but could not break through the black fog to escape. The magic treasure that had not reached the Mahayana stage could not exert its full strength without someone controlling it. At this moment, facing devouring Sun Sage, it had no power to fight back. However, it was impossible for the others to sit and watch as the devouring Sun Sage took away the greenly jade tables. Tide listening Venerable's eyes were surging with light, as if there was a blue ocean. There were even faint sounds of tides coming from his pupils. In the next moment, an azure sword light shot out of Venerable Tidehark's right pupil. It swept up a huge wave and slashed at the black fog around devouring Sun Sage. Devouring Sun Sage was furious and took a tough stance. The black fog suppressed the green jade set while sweeping up the azure sword light. Venerable Tidehark made a sword gesture with his finger, and the azure sword light had already turned into a flying sword that radiated sword chi. Its whole body flashed with blue light, and the sound of the sword and the sound of the tide merged into one. It made a light turn in the black fog, but with a boundless ocean-like force, it broke through devouring Sun Sage's black fog. At the same time, the boundless Ing sea around the island also surged and resonated with Venerable Tidehark's sword momentum. Countless sharp water swords that broke through space soared into the sky and attacked devouring Sun Sage together with Venerable Tidehark's magic treasure, the Rising Tide Sword. Devouring Sun Sage's expression changed slightly. As annoying as the Sea Dragon Clan. On the vast sea, the Sea Dragon Clan and the vast sea sword cultivators undoubtedly had a huge geographical advantage. The vast water spiritual chi was boundless, and such a geographical advantage was so huge that it could affect the direction of the battle. Devouring Sun Sage had no choice but to give up the green jade set and deal with it with all his strength. Only then did he receive Venerable Tidehark's attack. But before Venerable Tidehark could take the green jade set, a flash of lightning had already swept up the green jade set. It was the Crimson Thunder Dragon King. The Brontosaurus King laughed loudly. "You can stop devouring Sun Eagle, but you can't stop me." The purplish-green lightning spread out, not caring about the encirclement of Venerable Tidehark's water swords. The water swords were shattered by the Crimson Thunder Dragon King's 8 Desolation Thunder. The Crimson Thunder Dragon King also swept up the green jade set and was about to escape. "Crimson Thunder Dragon King, please stay." Dao Master Chang'e smiled slightly. Although he was not on good terms with Xiao Qingcheng and Venerable Tidehark, they were all humans. The Yingxi Passage was also located in the human world of the Divine Land. If the monster clan obtained Yingzhou Fairy Mountain, it would not look good on everyone. Green vines appeared in the air, blocking the Crimson Thunder Dragon King's path. The Crimson Thunder Dragon King controlled the 8 Desolation Thunder and smashed the vines. But the green vines seemed endless. Some of the vines were smashed, but others did not directly bear the lightning attack. Instead, they seemed to be nourished and grew more and more luxuriant. Being blocked by Dao Master Chang'e, the Crimson Thunder Dragon King could not leave. Xiao Qingcheng's 7 blazing true technique fire wheel above his head had already smashed down on him with the momentum of collapsing the sky. The Crimson Thunder Dragon King let out a cold snort. Lightning flashed all over his body, and with a shocking dragon roar, he had already revealed his true form. He turned into a purple-scaled sky dragon with a body length of nearly 1,000 feet. The scales on his body opened and closed, and the power of lightning became more and more vigorous. He forcibly resisted Xiao Qingcheng's 7 blazing true technique fire wheel and continued to destroy the tens of thousands of green trees created by Dao Master Chang'e's spell. Xiao Qingcheng said lightly, "The experts of the Dragon Clan are indeed extraordinary." She made a hand seal with her right hand, and the sky above suddenly began to ripple like water. The sky seemed to be torn open by an illusory crack of light and shadow. Within the crack, stars twinkled and twinkled. One of the fiery red stars became brighter and brighter, and its volume also seemed to grow. Everyone felt as if it was falling down, and it was getting closer and closer to everyone. One of the 9 luminaries of the heavens, Fire Star. The star power of the Fire Star was projected onto Xiao Qingcheng's 7 blazing true technique fire wheel. Immediately, the power of her spell became stronger and stronger, and it continuously smashed the 8 Desolation Thunder Dragon King's body. Thunder and fire clashed, causing a series of explosions. The sky above the island was completely covered in thunder and fire. Although the Crimson Thunder Dragon King was fierce, he still felt quite pressured when facing the combined attacks of Dao Venerable Chang'e and Xiao Qingcheng, especially when he had to divide his mind to suppress the verdant jade tables. Left with no choice, the Crimson Thunder Dragon King could only give up on the verdant jade tables and focus on the attacks in front of him. The verdant jade tables changed hands again. This time, it was Sword Venerable Tidehark who turned into a blue sword light and rushed over. Xiao Qingcheng's eyes flashed. She activated the 7 blazing true technique fire wheel with her right hand, and formed another hand seal with her left hand. The power of extreme coldness that seemed to come from the nine hells spread out, and it immediately resisted Sword Venerable Tidehark's vast ocean sword Tao. Greater Heaven's seven luminaries true technique, water celestial star divine ability, celestial star mysterious cold ice fiend. Using this technique, Xiao Qingqing was not afraid of Sword Venerable Tidehark, who had the advantage of the sea. For a moment, the few primordial soul realm experts were in a mess. At this moment, Zhu Yi controlled a giant spirit turtle and descended, covering the verdant jade tables. Xiao Qingqing's eyes flashed coldly. "Junior, you really dare to come?" Zhu Yi said unhurriedly, "Xiao Qingqing, let me see how orthodox your Eastern Heavenly Gate is. The Jade Roving Heavens Realm Escape technique is incomplete, but I wonder if your other spells are complete?" Chapter 747. Zhu Yi looked at Xiao Qingqing calmly. His eyes were clear as he exhaled a breath of white air. The white air condensed and turned into a scale-shaped cloud that floated above Zhu Yi's head. It covered an area of 3 to 4 acres. Above the scale-shaped cloud, a black qilin the size of a mountain appeared. It was much larger than when it captured Xiaopeng, and its majestic aura was stronger. The qilin and the tortoise appeared beside Zhu Yi. At the same time, a black stone tablet appeared in the void in front of Zhu Yi. It was like endless darkness that swallowed the Liqing Ut set. It was the Eternal Night Devil Tablet, a transformation-grade artifact. The Eternal Night Devil Tablet suppressed the Liqing Ut set as soon as it appeared. Zhu Yi looked calm as if he was not afraid that he would become the target of the others. The hearts of Xiao Qingqing and the others sank when they saw this. This guy looks arrogant, but he doesn't seem to be blinded by greed. He must have something to rely on to do this. With this in mind, the few of them moved quickly. The person who obtained the greenly jade table would naturally become the target of everyone. Even Dao Master Changle was ready to make a move, but at this time, Zhu Yi's purple robe was suddenly covered with a white robe. The white robe was simple and elegant. It emitted a white light, and the sound of reading came from the white light. It was inconspicuous at first, as if all the scholars in the world were reading manuscripts together. Xiao Qingqing, Sword Venerable Tidehark, and Dao Master Changle had complicated expressions when they saw this. The holy ancient robe, the robe worn by the holy master of the ancient literary world, was quite unique. In the hands of other cultivators, it was useless and looked like a secular robe. However, in the hands of a person who had merits in both literary aura and cultivation, it could unleash an astonishing power. More than 3 years ago, Zhu Yi went to Tianjing City to take the exam. His stunning essay caused 100 sages to cry out in unison. His cultivation of the late gold core realm was recognized by this magic treasure, which caused a sensation in the world. After that, the Supreme Saint Ancient Robe left the Tianjing Academy with Zhu Yi and didn't display its power again. Thus, many people gradually forgot about this matter and treated it as an anecdote. However, Xiao Qingqing and the others would not ignore it, because they could clearly sense a powerful will from the Paragon Saint Robe. It was as if the spiritual will of all the scholars in the world had merged together, like the righteous path of heaven and earth, shocking the past and the present. In the void next to Zhu Yi, a silhouette of an old man with a long beard and a gentle temperament appeared, standing side by side with him. Even great demons like Scarlet Thunder Dragon King and Devouring Sun Great Sage, who didn't know the details of the ancient sage robe, had solemn expressions on their faces. Not to mention Zhu Yi, who was at the middle Yuanying stage, even Xiao Qingqing and Dao Master Changlu, who were at the first tier of the primordial spirit realm, couldn't fully display its power. It could only be said that it could activate more power than a cultivator at the Yuanying stage. However, the ancient sage robe in front of them was really strange. No one had ever been able to refine it without forcibly erasing its primordial spirit. However, not only did it recognize Zhu Yi, who was at the late golden elixir, but now that it was activated by Zhu Yi, who was at the middle Yuanying stage, it could actually exert the power of a cultivator at the first tier of the primordial spirit realm who activated an artifact of the transfiguration level. Although it was against common sense, Xiao Qingcheng and the others had sufficient reason to suspect that if Zhu Yi reached the first tier of the primordial spirit realm, it was likely that he would have a chance to completely control such an artifact of the transfiguration level. As soon as the ancient sage robe appeared, Zhu Yi raised his hand and wrote in the void. Although he was writing, it only took an instant for countless words of light and darkness to appear in the void. Unlike in the past, the words that Zhu Yi had written with the power of light and darkness were each 100 feet in radius. The huge words floated in the air, giving off an extremely shocking feeling. Many words were arranged and changing, as if they were forming some kind of formation or writing some kind of earth-shattering record. Although they were in an alternate dimension like the Ying Sea, the aura of culture and the light of wisdom surged together, turning into streams of light and beautiful music that scattered in the air. It was as if a celestial maiden was scattering flowers and a celestial melody was lingering. This magnificent article turned into a golden bridge that extended towards the other side of the sky as if there was no end. The first paragraph of the article said to carry on the past and open up a way for the future. Keep moving forward and open up infinite possibilities in the future. This represented creation and the general trend of the human Tao. Don't abide by the rules and don't go with the flow. Keep moving forward forever. In the second paragraph of the article, breaking through all obstacles and surpassing all dangers represented transcendence. Enemies would be surpassed, difficulties would be surpassed, time would be surpassed, and the limits of the world would also be surpassed. Only the momentum of humanity would continue to advance, forever without limits. As for the third paragraph of the article, although it looked ordinary, it was very meaningful. It represented sharing, enlightenment, and guidance. He was willing to be the pioneer of the world and could be the teacher of the world, explaining the principles of the sages. Regardless of whether the people were wise or foolish, as long as they were willing, they could all accept enlightenment. This third paragraph of the article was perfectly compatible with Zhu Yi's literary aura and was displayed to the fullest. The 3 paragraphs of the article formed Zhu Yi's unique self-created divine art. It was the perfect combination of the literary aura and the power of the Tao. It was also the article that caused 100 sages to cry out in unison during Zhu Yi's examination. The moment the article appeared, there seemed to be countless figures flashing within the white light of the ancient sage robe. They were all scholars of the past. Everyone was reading the article together, and the power of the magic treasures and Zhu Yi's divine art perfectly fused together, enhancing each other. The power of the ancient sage robe strengthened Zhu Yi's divine art, and the literary aura of Zhu Yi's divine art also resonated with the ancient sage robe. Under the effect of the ancient sage robe, the golden bridge that seemed to connect the heaven and earth became increasingly condensed. Zhu Yi stepped onto the golden bridge with the eternal night devil steel and disappeared. All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but the time and space above the small island seemed to have been frozen. In less than a snap of a finger, Zhu Yi had already disappeared. He stepped onto the golden bridge with Qing Liu and disappeared into the horizon. Even Xiao Qingcheng, the Scarlet Thunder Dragon King, Dao Venerable Changlu, and the other experts were stunned for a moment when they saw the golden bridge rising. When they came back to their senses, they looked at the golden light that disappeared into the horizon. All of them had an ugly expression and immediately turned into 5 rays of light to chase after it. Xiao Qingcheng's left and right hands formed different hand seals, and an illusory light crack appeared in the sky above her head. Then, a red and a blue star shone together. They were the fire celestial star and the water celestial star. Tide-watching Venerable Sword Tide also set up the rising tide sword and turned into a blue sword light. He chased after Zhu Yi desperately and was about to slash down with his sword. The Scarlet Thunder Dragon King turned into lightning and his speed was even faster than Tide-watching Venerable Sword Tide. Although Dao Venerable Changlu was slightly slower, he was not in a hurry and followed closely behind Zhu Yi. However, Xiao Qingcheng, Tide-watching Venerable Sword Tide, and the Scarlet Thunder Dragon King soon realized that although they could see Zhu Yi stepping on the golden bridge, they could not lock onto his position and could not launch an attack to stop him. Zhu Yi stood calmly on the golden bridge, and the shadow of a huge spirit turtle appeared above his head. His eyes flickered constantly, and the hundreds of millions of runes on the surface of the turtle shell were constantly changing, performing countless divinations. If they could get closer, Xiao Qingcheng and the others could lock onto Zhu Yi and launch an attack. However, the distance was always a little short, which made Xiao Qingcheng and the others so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. Zhu Yi had taken the lead, and it was too difficult to take back the lead. 6 people, 1 in the front and 5 behind, turned into 6 flashes of light, constantly flashing in the void above the Ying Sea. On one hand, they had to keep an eye on each other, and on the other hand, they had to carefully avoid the heavy environment of the Ying Sea. This scene shocked Xiao Huayang and the others, as well as the demons of the Brontosaurus and the golden-winged rock tribe. They did not expect the 5 primordial soul realm experts to fail to take the lead when the 6 clans fought for the treasure. Instead, Zhu Yi, a mid-stage Yuanying cultivator, took the lead. Even Shi Xingyun was slightly surprised to see Zhu Yi break out of the encirclement with Qing Li Yu when he was surrounded by Xiao Qingcheng and the other 4 experts. When Lin Feng arrived near the island, he happened to see Zhu Yi break out of the encirclement. He shook his head and laughed, "Ha, that's little Yi's style indeed." As their master, Lin Feng naturally knew his disciples' battle styles very well. Unlike Xiao Yan, who liked to pretend to be weak to eat the tiger and counterattack, Zhu Yi did not test the opponent's strength when he fought with them. He would immediately use his ultimate skill and end the battle in the simplest and most direct way, defeating his opponent. Unless his opponent was like Xiao Peng in the past, where the gap between them was too big, he would not do it casually. Even a lion would use its full strength to fight a rabbit, but there was no need to fight an ant. For opponents who were not much stronger than him, Zhu Yi would always use his ultimate skill to defeat them. When fighting with him, his opponent's only choice would be to go all out from the beginning. Both parties would use their ultimate skills and meet on a narrow path, and the strongest would win. If one were to hold back their strength and keep their trump card in the beginning, they would most likely not be able to use their trump card until the day they died. It was not a good feeling to have a good hand of cards die in one's own hands. For example, Xiao Qingcheng and the others were experiencing this feeling now. Although they had already overestimated Zhu Yi, as primordial soul adepts, when facing a Yuanying cultivator, they would always have a psychological advantage before they truly fought with him and understood his opponent's strength. This was not arrogance, but a normal confidence. If a primordial soul adept was timid and cautious when facing a Yuanying cultivator, then all his years of cultivation would have been in vain. However, when faced with a Yuanying cultivator with a strength that defied common sense like Zhu Yi, Xiao Qingcheng and the others were immediately at a disadvantage, allowing Zhu Yi to gain the upper hand. When facing a group of primordial soul adepts, any Yuanying cultivator would use his full strength. This was something Xiao Qingcheng and the others had expected, but they did not expect Zhu Yi to use his full strength so fiercely. After gaining the upper hand, the 5 of them were actually unable to turn the tables. This was also why Zhu Yi chose to escape when he was surrounded by 5 people. If it was a one-on-one fight and Zhu Yi attacked with all his strength, the few primordial soul adepts would also secretly frown and feel the pressure. As long as there is someone who can stop this kid. The Scarlet Thunder Dragon King said coldly. They were so close to catching up to Zhu Yi, and Zhu Yi's magic power was also doing his best to avoid being locked on by them. At this moment, if a golden elixir period adept interfered slightly, Zhu Yi would be stopped. This time, it would be extremely difficult for him to escape with Qing Li Yu. Although Xiao Qingcheng's expression was slightly angry, she was not anxious. Silently, she said, "He can't escape." Before she finished speaking, a youth dressed in a sky-green robe suddenly appeared in the void. He smiled and said, "Senior Sister Xiao, I'm late, please forgive me. But now it seems that coming early is not as good as coming at the right time." Chapter 748. After the youth in azure robes appeared, he stared at Zhu Yi in the void. Golden light flashed and disrupted the space. Xiao Qingcheng and the rest might not be able to catch up to Zhu Yi, but it also limited Zhu Yi's escape route. Both sides were not just competing in speed, but also in the variations of their divine powers. Although the youth had yet to form the essence soul, he was still a late-stage Yuaniing cultivator. His divine powers and dharmic powers were even more powerful, and he was not to be underestimated. Xiao Qingqing said, "Junior brother Yin, you've indeed arrived in time." Yin Sungchen, the direct disciple of East Heavenly Gate, smiled. "It's my honor to help senior sister Xiao." Although he looked relaxed, Yin Sungchen did not underestimate Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi was surrounded by 5 primordial soul realm experts, but he was still able to break out of the encirclement. Yin Sungchen admitted that he could not do such a thing. However, he did not expect to win against Zhu Yi. As long as he could stall him for a while, Xiao Qingcheng and the rest would naturally catch up. At the thought of this, Yin Sungchen did not say anything else. A clear light surged above his head, and the heaven and earth Dharma idol flew out, turning into a giant that was 300 meters tall. There seemed to be worlds revolving above the giant's head, bringing with it a huge pressure as if all the worlds were pressing down together. Yin Sungchen pushed with his palm, and the rotating giant wheel above the giant's head smashed down at Zhu Yi. The space in front of him shook violently as if someone was violently rubbing a painting. The spirit qi within a radius of a few hundred miles was all annihilated. With Yin Sungchen's interference, Zhu Yi, who was using his full strength to deal with Xiao Qingcheng and the rest on the Golden Bridge, immediately felt his path blocked. "You're still far from it." Zhu Yi's expression didn't change. He pointed a finger, and the Kirin roared. A black light swirled around it, and it began to run like a moving mountain. Every step it took was filled with explosive power, and the space around it was torn apart. Zhu Yi stepped on the Golden Bridge and turned into a golden light, about to pass through without slowing down at all. Yin Sungchen secretly frowned. He was also a rising star of this generation in the Eastern Heavenly Gate and was a talent that the Eastern Heavenly Gate focused on nurturing. Although he entered the sect late, his cultivation level improved extremely quickly, and his divine abilities and dharmic powers were also extraordinary. However, with Yuaniing's late-stage cultivation base and the use of his universal avatar, he could not even stop Zhu Yi from advancing. This inevitably made him feel a strong sense of defeat and discomfort. Our sect still needs to gather all the Tao technique manuals as soon as possible. However, Yin Sungchen was an extraordinary person after all. He immediately regained his composure and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Actually, I just need to delay Zhu Yi for a while so that senior sister Xiao and the rest can surround him again. When the time comes, he will have to face 3 primordial soul adepts and 2 great sages of the demon race. Yin Sungchen narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "We need to infuriate him and make him lose his calm and rationality." No matter how stable a cultivator's mental state is, unless he has no desires, no love, and no hate, there will always be obsessions and mental demons. And there is no doubt that Zhu Yi's mental demons are his parents. At the thought of this, Yin Sungchen smiled and said, "Although Meng Bingyun was expelled from Taishu Temple because her Tao heart was broken, it might not be the same as the time when she entered the mortal world to experience thousands of emotions in order to cultivate the supreme Wangqing Tao. A single kiss from her lips was tasted by tens of thousands of people, and she embarrassed Taishu Temple." He was lying through his teeth, distorting the truth and using specious information to slander Meng Bingyun. Upon hearing this, Zhu Yi looked at him coldly and frowned slightly. But very quickly, Zhu Yi's frown eased. In the next moment, he stepped on the Golden Bridge and charged towards Yin Sungchen. Yin Sungchen was already prepared. With the heaven and earth Dharma idol in the shape of a giant above his head, he pushed his palms out, and his vast dharmic powers turned into a small world, protecting Yin Sungchen within it. He faced Zhu Yi with the small world. The Heavenly Gate's secret divine ability, Heavenly Realm Curse, was a top-notch defensive divine ability used for defense. Within the Heavenly Realm Curse, Yin Sungchen did not hold back and made hand seals with both hands. "Treasure, please show yourself." A pitch-black robe appeared on his body, and like the original darkness of the universe, it enveloped his entire body. The powerful aura of a primordial spirit Dharma treasure surged from within, and a voice came from the robe. What a grand divine ability, and the enhancement of an embodiment-level Dharma treasure. The combination of the two is truly ferocious. Even if I unleash my full power, it's hard to say if I can block it. He can't attack me with his full power, unless he wants to perish together with me. Otherwise, attacking me with his full power is equivalent to selling his back to senior sister Xiao and the rest. Hearing Yin Sungchen's words, the voice in the robe was still solemn. We still can't be careless. As it spoke, a dark light swept over and shrunk Yin Sungchen, rapidly turning into a small dot and disappearing from the small world formed by the heavenly realm curse. Under the protection of the Dharma treasure, Yin Sungchen could still see the outside situation clearly. Seeing that Zhu Yi was attacking, he sneered. So what if your divine ability is powerful? The holes in your mental state are too big. With just a slight touch, you immediately start doing stupid things. For a cultivator like you to be able to live until today, you really have to thank the gods and Buddhas for their blessings. However, it's time for today. As he thought about that, Yin Sungchen suddenly felt that something was wrong. Surprisingly, Zhu Yi did not care about Xiao Qingcheng and the rest who were chasing behind him and only focused on attacking Yin Sungchen. He completely ignored his own defense and looked like he would not stop until he was dead and wanted to kill Yin Sungchen here. Yin Sungchen was stunned. Although his mother is most likely his reverse scale, is he really going to exchange his life with me just because of some slanderous words? In the next moment, Yin Sungchen's eyes widened as he watched Zhu Yi, who was wearing the Supreme Saint ancient robe, step on the golden bridge formed by the Saint's chapter, and instantly crush the small world formed by the heavenly realm curse. Countless recitation sounds echoed between heaven and earth, and righteousness rippled continuously. As the golden bridge pressed down, time and space seemed to be distorted and stagnant. In the void, a small black dot that was like a speck of dust kept growing bigger. This small black dot resisted growing bigger, but there was nothing it could do. In the end, it could only watch as it was reduced to a ball of black light and revealed Yin Sungchen, who was protected by the black robe. The primordial spirit of the Supreme Saint ancient robe, that long-bearded elder, stared at the black robe and snorted heavily. A white light flashed and instantly fixed the black robe in place. Meanwhile, the powerful divine power of Zhu Yi's Saint's chapter pressed down on Yin Sungchen in an unstoppable manner. Yin Sungchen's face was as dark as water. If you want to fight, let's fight. Let's see who will die. He exerted the power of the heaven and earth manifestation to the extreme and faced Zhu Yi's Saint's chapter. The instant he attacked me was enough for senior sister Xiao and the rest to catch up. What I need to do now is to defend with all my strength so that I don't exchange my life with this little bastard. That's not worth it. Just as he thought of this, Yin Sungchen received Xiao Qingcheng's telepathic voice transmission. Junior brother Yin, retreat quickly. At this moment, Yin Sungchen also felt an extreme sense of danger, but before he could react further, he saw a scene that made him feel like his liver was going to explode. In the void, a painting scroll suddenly appeared. On the painting scroll was a painting of a blood river. The painting scroll emitted a dark light, and the blood river on the painting became reality. Thick, smelly, dirty blood flowed out continuously and stretched across the sky like an upside-down blood river. This dirty blood river happened to block Xiao Qingcheng and the rest's path to chase after Zhu Yi. A Dharma treasure. A Dharma treasure refined by blood river true water. Xiao Qingcheng and the rest frowned slightly. They did not notice that there was someone hiding at the side previously, but they had a vague feeling of unease. It was only when the other party took the initiative to reveal himself that they finally confirmed his existence. It was fine if the other party did not make a move, but once he did, the five of them immediately sensed the fluctuation of his aura and avoided the blood river. Xiao Qingcheng and the rest looked in the same direction and saw a bronze-skinned young man dressed in purple standing calmly in the void. An ethereal and unpredictable ice mist floated around him, and within the mist and illusion, a dazzling sword light flashed vaguely. Xiao Qingcheng, Dao Master Changluo, and Sword Master Guanzhou's hearts sank when they saw this, but they still sighed and nodded in unison. So it's the Master of Xian Gate. Greetings. Scarlet Thunder Dragon King and Devouring Sun Great Sage also frowned slightly. A clone of the Master of Xian Gate? But he is only at the late Yuanying realm, and he can hide his tracks from our spiritual senses. We can only vaguely detect a trace of his shadow, and it feels like he is not inferior to a first-tier essence soul realm cultivator. The master of Xian Gate is indeed worthy of his reputation. Xiao Qingqing's heart moved slightly. She communicated with the magic power seeds that she had scattered outside, and she immediately found that she had lost contact with one of them. It's Xiao Peng's. He erased the magic power seed without me noticing at all. After erasing, if I don't take the initiative to check, I won't be aware of it. It seems that he got the information about the Qingli jade from Xiao Peng. Lin Feng himself had arrived here. Even if it was just a clone, the strength he displayed had already made Xiao Qingcheng and the rest frown. He also had the Ice Soul Misty Cloud and the Blood River painting in his hands. Even if he did not come in person, he was not to be underestimated. However, since Xiao Qingcheng and the rest were blocked by Lin Feng, Yin Sungchen was in big trouble. On the golden bridge formed by the chapter of the saints, countless lights and shadows appeared, as if thousands of scholars and Zhu Yi were standing side by side on the golden bridge, letting out a magnificent cry. The trend of the human Tao was like the tide of history, irreversible and unstoppable. The magnificent force directly crushed Yin Sungchen's heaven and earth dharma. I miscalculated. Yin Sungchen stared at Lin Feng, who was blocking Xiao Qingcheng and the rest, with his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. Then, he saw a flash of golden light and the sound of people reading. It was as if the whole world had frozen. After the heaven and earth dharma, Zhu Yi's attack did not stop at all, and he continued to attack Yin Sungchen. Xiao Qingcheng frowned deeply. After a slight hesitation, her body turned into an azure light, bypassed Lin Feng, and chased after Zhu Yi. She could leave a secret mechanism mark on Xiao Peng, which would activate automatically to silence him once important secrets were leaked. However, Yin Sungchen was a rising star that Eastern Heavenly Gate had put great effort into nurturing, and he was also her supporter. It would be too vexing if he were to die in the hands of Zhu Yi. A lantern flew up above her head, carefully guarding against Lin Feng, but she realized that Lin Feng had no intention of stopping her at all. However, when Sword Venerable Tide Listener and the rest showed signs of moving forward, the Blood River True Water swept over. Chapter 749. After Lin Feng arrived, Zhu Yi made hand seals and the Li Qing jade set that was suppressed under the Eternal Night Devil Steel regained its freedom. It turned into a green light and soared into the sky. However, before the Li Qing jade set could be happy, it was already taken by Lin Feng with the Blood River painting. The black robe that was suppressed by the ancient holy robe was also unlucky. Lin Feng saw the black robe and then looked at the lamp above Xiao Qingqing's head. He instantly smiled. Eastern Sky Gate does have a bit of wealth. As a spirit-nurturing grade Dharma treasure, it was difficult for the Blood River painting to suppress the azure jade table and Yin Sungchen's black robe by itself. If both sides were controlled by essence spirit realm cultivators, the Blood River painting might not be able to trap the two Dharma treasures by itself. However, the Blood River painting's power was that it actually had no other use other than to contain and control a large amount of true blood water in the painting. That was an entire nether Blood River vein. Facing such a large amount of true blood water, the Li Qing jade set and the black robe that had limited power without a master were unable to break free. If they forcefully resisted, they would even be polluted by the true blood water and lose their spirituality, damaging their foundations. In terms of function, the Blood River painting and the Xiantian God sealing flags that Lin Feng gave to Wang Lin had similar effects. When used to fight with enemies, it was not the magic treasure itself that was used, but the things contained in the magic treasure. The Blood River painting relied on the nether Blood River, while the Xiantian God sealing flags relied on the imprisoned primordial spirit. This way, although Lin Feng's metal tree clone had yet to form a primordial spirit, it could use the Blood River painting and use the true blood water to trap the ownerless Li Qing jade set and the black robe. The only thing to note was that the Blood River painting couldn't be pressured too much, otherwise, the nether Blood River vein refined by the magic treasure might go out of control. Seeing Lin Feng put away the Li Qing jade set and the black robe, Tide Listening Sword Venerable and the others fell into hesitation. They have the advantage in numbers, attacking together. Even if Lin Feng's Iron Tree clone has 2 treasures and his strength is extraordinary, he still may not be able to protect the Greenly Jade set. However, Venerable Tide Hark, the Crimson Thunder Dragon King, and the others all knew that it was impossible to defeat Lin Feng's Iron Tree clone quickly and seize the Li Green Jade tables. They would definitely experience a fierce battle. Even if they could win, there would be enough time for Lin Feng's main body to rush over. Unless giants like Liang Pan and Stonefeather also come here together, otherwise at that time they still won't be able to do anything to Lin Feng. Dao Master Chang'e smiled bitterly and immediately said, Sect Master Lin, the great Qin Empire will not give up on the 3 mountains of Yinghai. However, I'm no match for you, so I won't make things difficult for your avatar. I've already reported the news to the Emperor. His Majesty is on the way. I have to delay you for a while. Please forgive me for offending you. Tide-watching Sword Venerable said silently, I have also reported the news to His Majesty and the Sect Master. He glanced at Xiao Qingcheng, who was charging towards Zhu Yi. Although the Songhai Sword Sect and the Eastern Heavenly Gate were both affiliated with the Great Zhou Empire, they did not have much of a relationship. Strictly speaking, they were 2 of the larger factions in the Great Zhou Empire's camp, and they were even in a competitive relationship. That was why when they fought for the Liqing Jade set, they didn't hold back when they attacked each other. Seizing treasures depended on their own abilities. But now, facing Lin Feng, he had to join hands with Xiao Qingcheng. The azure rising tide sword transformed into thousands of ripples of light, flashing in the air and confronting Lin Feng's misty ice soul cloud. One was a spirit-nurturing level magic treasure that could fully exert its strength, while the other was a transformation-level magic treasure that could only exert a limited amount of power. Who would win would depend on the abilities of their respective masters. Red Thunder Dragon King and Devouring Sun Great Saint had been silent, but seeing Tide Listening Sword Venerable's intention to fight, they also began to move. They were not interested in the battle between Xiao Qingcheng and Zhu Yi. What they cared about was the Liqing Jade set that had fallen into Lin Feng's hands. Although he was stared at by a primordial soul grand sword cultivator and 2 great saint demons, Lin Feng looked calm. Instead, he looked at Dao Venerable Chang'e and said with a faint smile, My disciple is about to have a wonderful battle, so I won't leave now. But I won't wait too long for Sect Fellow Shi. If Sect Fellow Shi hasn't arrived by the time my disciple's battle is over, I won't have time to wait for him. Dao Venerable Chang'e said with a smile, If His Majesty doesn't arrive for a long time, I don't have the ability to keep Master Lin waiting. Having said that, he took a step back, indicating that he would not besiege Lin Feng's Iron Tree avatar with Tide Listening Sword Venerable and the other 2. As long as Lin Feng didn't leave, he would only quietly watch the battle between Zhu Yi and Xiao Qingcheng with Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at the Red Thunder Dragon King, Devouring Sun Great Saint, and Tide Listening Sword Venerable who were ready to make a move. Although he was facing 3 primordial soul stage powerhouses at the same time, he was still as calm as ever. In fact, he didn't even have the intention to rush over. A clear light flashed above his head, and a 150 feet tall heaven and earth avatar, like a towering tree, appeared in front of everyone, like a jade pillar supporting the sky and a golden beam supporting the sea. With the support of the 8 trigrams 4 symbols, the Shura Iron Tree's indestructible life, and the Eternal Light's immortality, together formed a powerful defense that would make most primordial soul stage cultivators despair. Tide Listening Sword Venerable and the others were surprised. It was already incredible that Lin Feng's late Yuanying avatar could make them, primordial soul stage cultivators, afraid, but they only realized it now. The attack power of Lin Feng's Iron Tree avatar was not weak. It was enough to rival and even suppress most primordial soul stage cultivators. But compared to his defense, it was not enough. In general, Lin Feng's Iron Tree avatar, according to its own standards, was weak in attack and strong in defense. Its strongest point was its defense. The Iron Tree avatar revealed its heaven and earth avatar and pushed its defense to the extreme. Even a primordial soul second-level reversion to the void stage experts would have a headache if they saw it. At this moment, Tide Listening Sword Venerable and the other 2 experts were besieging him. It would be extremely difficult for Lin Feng to defeat them like he did to Tide Listening Sword Venerable, but it would be even more difficult for the three of them to break through Lin Feng's defense. Not to mention that Lin Feng still had the Ice Soul Cloud. With Tide Listening Sword Venerable and the others attacking with all their might, they could suffer a fierce counterattack from Lin Feng at any time. After realizing this, whether it was Tide Listening Sword Venerable who wanted to help Xiao Qingqing or Scarlet Thunder Dragon King and Devouring Sun Great Sage who coveted the Greenly Jade set, they immediately fell silent. For a moment, they did not have the urge to make a move. They just confronted Lin Feng. Lin Feng's expression was very relaxed. He looked into the distance. There, the cultivators of East Heaven Gate, Songhai Sword Sect, Brontosaurus Clan, and Golden-Winged Great Pen Clan were surrounding Li Yuanfang, Jiayu, and White Light with malicious intentions. However, when they were swept by Lin Feng's gaze, everyone felt a chill in their hearts and had no choice but to stop. If Tide Listening Sword Venerable and the others insisted on stopping, it would be difficult for Lin Feng's Iron Tree avatar to break through their line of defense. However, for Tide Listening Sword Venerable and the others, doing so was too petty. Both sides were only fighting for treasures. They were not mortal enemies. Holding Lin Feng's disciple as a hostage would instead form an irreconcilable hatred. Putting aside whether they were strong enough to endure Xianmen Tianzong's fury, even if they were not afraid, it would be unnecessary and benefit the other forces that entered Ing Ocean. If there was a second Essence Soul expert from East Heaven Gate or the Great Zhou dynasty, they would have to pay them back in their own coin. However, among the few experts present, even Tide Listening Sword Venerable who had the closest relationship with East Heaven Gate, they would not fight to the death for Xiao Qingqing, Yin Sangchen, and Lin Feng. Under Lin Feng's deterrence, the situation gradually stabilized. On the other side, the battle between Zhu Yi and Xiao Qingqing's group became more and more intense. Seeing that Lin Feng had stopped Tide Listening Sword Venerable and the others but let her come alone, Xiao Qingqing's gaze flickered slightly. Are you really that confident in your disciple? You've indeed prevented Tide Listening, Changle, and the others from coming over, but you've also been completely trapped. Xiao Qingqing's gaze gradually turned cold, and bright flames flew out of the spirit lamp above her head. The crimson flames glowed with a golden luster. There were a total of 28 flames, forming a formation of 28 constellations, directly surrounding Zhu Yi in the center. Zhu Yi's golden bridge had already destroyed Yin Sangchen's heaven and earth dharma form and was about to attack him. Xiao Qingqing also arrived very quickly. Zhu Yi looked at the 28 flickering crimson flames and nodded. Good. Heavenly Fire of Qianyang, 28 constellations Heavenly Fire formation. Very good, you guys still obtain some of the Heavenly Gate's inheritance. The Saints chapter was one of Zhu Yi's strongest techniques, which was why it could shatter Yin Sangchen's heaven and earth dharma form in one strike. However, as a direct disciple of East Heaven Gate and a rising star of the younger generation, Yin Sangchen was also extraordinary. The shattered heaven and earth dharma form turned into a chaotic void and continuously wore down the golden bridge formed by Zhu Yi's Saints chapter. At this moment, Xiao Qingqing activated the 28 constellations Heavenly Fire formation from her magic treasure and immediately surrounded Zhu Yi. At the same time, Xiao Qingqing's right hand drew across the sky, and the light and shadow gap split open, revealing the stars in the sky. The fiery red Mars shone continuously, and the power of the stars strengthened Xiao Qingqing's 7 blazing true technique fire wheel, which smashed down towards Zhu Yi's head. Multiple powerful attacks pounced towards Zhu Yi at the same time, forcing him to retreat. If Zhu Yi insisted on killing Yin Sangchen, he would also be in danger of being heavily injured. By then, when Xiao Qingqing launched her second wave of attacks, he would very likely have to pay with his life for Yin Sangchen's. Retreat! Xiao Qingqing yelled, and the Qin Xing profound cold ice fiendish divine art was already ready to be unleashed. Yin Sangchen's heart, which had already fallen to the bottom of the valley of despair, seemed to have seen the light of hope again. He hurriedly wanted to work together with Xiao Qingqing to break through Zhu Yi's divine art and escape. Zhu Yi said calmly, before coming to this island to find the Liqing Jade set, I used the art of 10,000 elephants returning to make a divination. There is fortune in misfortune, and fortune in misfortune. It seems like this misfortune and misfortune will fall on you guys. The Liqing jade set and the black robe had already been handed over to Lin Feng. He made a hand seal and activated the Supreme Saint Ancient Robe and Eternal Night Devil Steel, causing them to vibrate and emit a vigorous aura. Chapter 750. Zhu Yi's Paragon Sage Ancient Robe emitted surging white light. Within the white light, thousands of light shadows appeared one after another, and the sound of chanting could be heard continuously. The white light strengthened the golden bridge formed by the chapter of saints below Zhu Yi. With a turn of the golden bridge, it had already traversed the void, causing Shao Qingqing's 7 blazing true arts fire will to miss. At the same time, the eternal night devil steel emitted a pitch-black light, causing the surrounding time and space to fall into an eternal night. The bright light of Shao Qingqing's Dharma treasure, the Yang Sky Lantern, was instantly devoured by the darkness. The light of the 28 constellations' heavenly fire formation also dimmed. Even so, Zhu Yi didn't forget about Yin Sangchen. He clapped his palms, and rays of bright and dark light weaved together to form the mandala light and darkness formation, sealing Yin Sangchen. In the next moment, the light and darkness formation started to collapse towards the center. Yin Sangchen's heaven and earth dharma form was already broken, and he was sealed by the mandala light and darkness formation. Once the formation collapsed, the power that simulated the destruction of heaven and earth would erupt, and he would definitely die. Still trying to act fierce? You think too highly of yourself. Shao Qingqing snorted. Like mother, like son. Meng Bingyun is like this, and so is the bastard child she left behind. Shao Qingqing made a hand seal, and the Qin Xing profound cold ice fiendish divine power turned into an extremely cold ice wave, instantly freezing the mandala light and darkness formation. The powerful power that originated from the water celestial star turned into the power of extreme cold. It was not much weaker than a primordial soul cultivator using the Xian Ming true water of the same realm. It froze space, time, matter, spirit qi, and magic power together. After being touched by the Qin Xing profound cold ice fiendish light and darkness formation, Zhu Yi's collapsing mandala light and darkness formation stopped immediately. Yin Sangchen was overjoyed and was about to break out. My heaven and earth dharma form was destroyed, and my cultivation was greatly damaged. It will probably take hundreds of years to rebuild my heaven and earth dharma form, but I still have time to break through to the primordial soul realm. After I become a primordial soul realm cultivator, I will repay today's humiliation 100-fold. After saving Yin Sangchen, Shao Qingqing did not feel relieved. Instead, her heart sank. This was because of her sensitive mental perception as a primordial soul cultivator. Without any hesitation, Shao Qingqing took Yin Sangchen with her. Her entire body emitted a green light and turned into a dark green small world, protecting her as she broke through the void and teleported. However, the golden bridge formed by Zhu Yi's chapter of saints had already broken through the air and arrived in front of her, blocking her way. The Heavenly Gates roving jade myriad heavens escape technique is indeed extraordinary. When used by a primordial soul adept, it is indeed very powerful. Even I am not confident that I can catch up to him. However, your Eastern Heavenly Gates broken escape technique is a disgrace. Zhu Yi said unhurriedly, it's like a 3-legged chair. It can be used to scare people, but if someone really sits on it, it will fall down immediately. As he spoke, the golden bridge, which was strengthened by the power of the Supreme Saint Ancient Robe, froze time and space and pressed down on Shao Qingqing. What a cunning kid! Shao Qingqing immediately reacted. From the beginning, Zhu Yi's target was not Yin Sangchen, but her. He used Yin Sangchen to lure her to rescue him. That was why he used the light and darkness mandala heaven's barrier to trap Yin Sangchen. Otherwise, if the golden bridge formed by the chapter of saints continued pressing down, Yin Sangchen would be killed immediately. Zhu Yi, who was at the middle Yuanying stage, could not be measured by the standard of a Yuanying stage cultivator. He even dared to take the initiative to challenge Shao Qingqing, who was at the primordial soul realm. If Shao Qingqing fought him head-on, Zhu Yi was not afraid at all. However, if Xiao Qingqing wanted to escape, Zhu Yi could not do anything to her. The Eastern Heavenly Gate's roving Jade Myriad Heaven's escape technique was indeed incomplete. However, if Xiao Qingqing did not want to save Yin Sangchen, she would not have lost the initiative again. If she escaped, she would naturally have endless methods to obstruct Zhu Yi's pursuit and let herself leave easily. You're actually preventing me from escaping? Xiao Qingqing raised her brows and revealed a faint smile on her beautiful face. She seemed to be amused by Zhu Yi's behavior, but there was an additional killing intent in her eyes. I said that you like to think too highly of yourself, just like Meng Bingyun. Are you taking that as a compliment? Xiao Qingqing's smile faded, and her eyes turned cold. It's fine for the Taoist sect master to do the same thing, but do you think you're worthy of being impudent in front of me? One of her hands was the 7 Blazing True Technique Fire Wheel, and the other was the Celestial Star Profound Cold Ice Fiend. The 2 divine abilities blasted towards the golden bridge formed by Zhu Yi's chapter of saints. Facing Xiao Qingqing's fierce counterattack, Zhu Yi did not panic. Instead, he nodded leisurely and said, although I used this essay to draw the attention of 100 sages and eventually obtained the top spot in the golden roll, I know that I have not completely expressed the knowledge in my heart. There's still room for improvement in my chapter of saints. If this essay reaches perfection, suppressing you will be as easy as flipping my hand. However, if it reaches perfection, I should have attained a soul as well. I can still suppress you without using the chapter of saints. Zhu Yi smiled. There's fortune amidst misfortune. Today, I'm going to use the misfortune and misfortune that you've created to achieve my fortune and misfortune. Xiao Qingqing, take this move of mine first. The island-sized spirit turtle and the mountainous Qilin appeared beside Zhu Yi once again. At the same time, a tremendous dragon's roar rang out behind Zhu Yi. Among the auspicious clouds, dragons might radiated as an azure dragon that was no smaller than the spirit turtle and Qilin appeared in the air. Afterwards, a clear phoenix cry rang out as well. The 5-colored phoenix danced gracefully, circling above Zhu Yi's head. Method of myriad manifestation repatriation. Heavenly Qilin technique. Incantation of the phoenix's nerva. Method of dragon ascension. Zhu Yi brought his hands together, and the images of the 4 spirits gathered together. The surging spiritual qi turned into a huge ring, as if it had directly cut off the space around Xiao Qingqing and sealed her within. Xiao Qingqing's eyes narrowed slightly. She saw the ring repeat itself, harmonious and self-consistent. It contained the profound ways of the world. It seemed to clarify the principles and laws of how everything operated in the world. The images of the 4 spirits alternated within the ring. The spirit turtle suppressed all agitation and changes, causing everything to remain still. At the same time, it constantly divined and projected the changes of the world, understanding everything. The Qilin was righteous, defending and upholding justice, subduing all evil and ensuring that everything did not deviate from their trajectories, always proceeding in a straight line. The phoenix demonstrated the changes of creation. Everything would eventually head towards destruction, but after destruction, new life would be born, repeating the cycle. The azure dragon did not display any offensive nature. Instead, it represented a will to constantly improve and forge ahead. At the same time, it was not a selfish and selfish act, but a grand will for everyone in the world to strive for greatness. With 9, it was auspicious to see a leaderless group of dragons. The powers of the 4 spirits complemented one another, constantly fusing together. As a result, the ring seemed simple, but it was as large as the heavens. Slowly, Zhu Yi said, Xiao Qingqing, try out my great cycle of 4 symbols formation. You're a soul formation cultivator, so you should be able to give me some useful suggestions, right? The great cycle of 4 symbols formation originated from the 4 symbols heaven opening tome that Lin Feng had passed on to him. Together with the chapter of the saints, they were currently Zhu Yi's 2 most powerful abilities. The power of the cycle pressed down. To Xiao Qingqing's shock, she discovered that she was actually unable to tear through the sky to draw in the power of the stars. As a matter of fact, even soul formation cultivators' ability to freely control the spiritual chi of the world and become one with the world was vaguely obstructed. Good. Very good. Xiao Qingqing raised an eyebrow slightly. You're stronger than Meng Bingyun. If you've already proven your soul formation, this formation can directly sever my connection with the world. Unfortunately, you're still not a soul formation cultivator. As she spoke, Xiao Qingqing's figure suddenly distorted, turning into an existence that seemed like a starry universe. It was as if layers of worlds were revolving together. At this moment, Xiao Qingqing finally manifested her soul formation. In the worlds formed by her soul formation, the 7 blazing true technique fire wheel and the celestial profound cold ice fiend suddenly rose. The two opposing powers gathered together. Not only did they not become chaotic, but they also began to merge. You've put in a lot of effort since you used junior brother Ian as bait to lure me into your trap. Unfortunately, all strategies are built on the foundation of strength. Xiao Qingqing said coldly, I'll say it again. You're not your master. I heard that Meng Bingyun broke Hongwu's rules when she taught you how to read when you were young and was even reprimanded for it. Did she teach you this? Fire and water calamity. The two opposing powers, the 7 blazing true technique fire wheel and the celestial profound cold ice fiend, merged together. Instantly, a brand new concept of power was born. It was as if there was an earthquake spreading out, and each wave was stronger than the last. In the end, it was as if the heavens were falling and the earth was splitting apart. Volcanoes erupted, and dams burst. The aura of a great disaster shook all the living beings in the surroundings. The Great Calamity and the Great Calamity were like the heavens and earth reaching their end. The combination of fire and water, the Star Calamity. The violent power crashed against the 4 symbols' great heavenly cycle formation. The heavenly cycle formed by the formation shook violently. Xiao Qingqing's ultimate attack seemed to be forcefully tearing the heavens apart. This scene fell into the eyes of Venerable Tidehark and the other soul formation powerhouses. Their expressions turned solemn. With Xiao Qingqing's supernatural power and her Dharma treasure, the Sun Sky Lantern, her strength was vaguely the strongest of the 5 soul formation powerhouses present. Under the effect of Xiao Qingqing's magic power, the sky seemed to crack open again. If Xiao Qingqing succeeded and drew upon the power of the stars, the power of her divine art would be even stronger. At that time, it would truly be worthy of the name, Star Calamity. However, Zhu Yi was as calm as usual. He said indifferently, Fire and water calamity. My mother naturally taught me that. Apart from that, she also taught me that the slightest difference can lead to a great difference. The eternal night devil steel tried its best to suppress the Sun Sky Lantern. The holy sage ancient robe shone brightly, and its power was added to the golden bridge formed by the Book of Saints. The golden bridge's power became even more majestic, and it resisted Xiao Qingqing's attack together with the 4 symbols' great heavenly cycle formation. The 2 divine arts were fully focused on defense. Even though Xiao Qingqing had already proven her soul formation, she couldn't break through it in a short period of time. The golden bridge formed by the Book of Saints was even more mysterious. While defending against Xiao Qingqing's attack, it also affected Xiao Qingqing's Yuan spirit incarnation, causing it to feel sluggish. Xiao Qingqing's mind was slightly dazed. For a moment, she even changed from the Yuan spirit incarnation back to her human form. Xiao Qingqing, who had regained her senses, was furious. She pushed her power to the extreme, wanting to break Zhu Yi's Book of Saints and 4 symbols' great heavenly cycle formation. The slightest difference can lead to a great difference. You're not just a slightest difference. On the golden bridge, Zhu Yi laughed softly. Previously, it was a slightest difference. Now, it's indeed not just a slightest difference. A majestic wave of magic power came from the golden bridge, shaking the surrounding void. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.